proceedings of the House of Assembly today taking place in the Parliament building, of course. It is the 11th of August 2026, and I am Shelton Daniel sitting with Michael Gaspar. It looks like it won't be long before things get going, Michael.
Oui, Shelton, merci un peu. Bienvenue tout le monde pour un programme, ça c'est pour ça qui a passé en Caille Concite aujourd'hui, directement qui a venu autour de station télévision NTN. Et pour les gens qui ont écouté nous à la station radio RSL, ça y est, Saint Lucia FM. Moi, pour les RSL, hein, c'est Saint Lucia FM, c'est 97.3. Nous sommes bienvenus ici pour une autre session qui concite avec comme Shelton dit nous tout à l'heure. Il y a plusieurs membres du Parlement qui sont assis et qui préparés pour une session qui semble commencer tout de suite. Et même qu'on a parlé là, moi j'ai eu l'apparence Sajan qui est venu, qui est parlé la porte là tout à l'heure, Shelton, avec qui nous avons commencé à présent.
Let us pray. In the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Almighty God, by whom alone King reigns and Prince decree justice, and from whom alone cometh all counsel, wisdom, and understanding, we thine unworthy servants here gathered together in thy name do most humbly beseech thee to send down thy heavenly wisdom from above, to direct and guide us in all our consultations, and grant that we, having thy fear always before our eyes, and laying aside all private interest, prejudice, and partial affections, the result of all our counsel may be to thy glory of thy blessed name, the maintenance of true religion and justice, the safety, honor, and happiness of the King, the public will, peace, tranquility of St. Lucia, and the uniting and knitting together of the hearts of all persons estates within the same, in true Christian love and charity, one towards another, through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen. The grace of our Lord Jesus Christ, and the love of God, and the fellowship of the Holy Ghost be with us all forevermore. Amen. In the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit.
Good morning, members. I beg to report that the members for Castries South, Viewfort South, Castries Central, and Meekwood South will be absent today. And in keeping with Section 23 of the Constitution of St. Lucia, which makes the Governor General the titular head of the Parliament, I wish to formally welcome His Excellency Felix Finisterre, the Acting Governor General, on his appointment as Acting Governor General. Honorable members, I beg to announce that His Excellency, the Governor General, has been pleased to assent the following bills. Income Tax Amendment Number 2, Automatic Exchange of Financial Account Information Amendment, St. Lucia Tourism Authority Amendment, Tourism Development Amendment, Regulated Substances Amendment, Regulated Substances Safety and Security of Radiation Sources, Electricity, Distribution and Price of Goods Amendment, Citizenship of St. Lucia Amendment, Crown Lands Amendment. And I wish to make two announcements, members. Even though I have pronounced on them previously, they are not on the record in the House. We should pay tribute to two individuals who passed away recently. Norman Charlemagne was never merely a technician in the Parliament. He was part of its living machinery, the quiet force that ensured the people's business could be heard, recorded, and carried forward. If we, the members of Parliament, are the engine, then Norman was the transmission, the steady, reliable mechanism that kept the vehicle of democracy moving with clarity and purpose. His work was not glamorous, but it was indispensable, and he performed it with a devotion that spanned decades. For as long as I can remember, and those of you who know me know my memory stretches back an exceptionally long way, Norman has been the Parliament's sound engineer, its all-round technical guardian. He knew every wire, every switch, every stubborn piece of equipment, and he treated them with the same patience and care he extended to all of us. He was dependable. He was the man who arrived early, stayed late, solved problems quietly, and made the rest of us look good without ever seeking recognition. His friendship was as steady as his work, marked by humility, humor, and a gentleness that made him beloved across administrations, parties, and personalities. The Parliament of St. Lucia has lost a pillar. The staff have lost a dear colleague, whilst I have lost a dear and extremely long-time friend. Our country, St. Lucia, has lost one of those unsung citizens who kept our institution standing tall. May Charlie's transition be peaceful, and may his legacy echo as faithfully as the sound he tended to for so many years. And the second tribute would be to former Vice President of the Senate, Everest Jamari. And members would feel free to make some comments after my announcement, if they so desire, on either or both of what I've said. Everest Jamari's life was one of rare breadth and depth, woven into both the intimate fabric of family and the wider tapestry of national service. To me, he was more than a cousin twice over, more than a schoolmate at St. Mary's College, more than a lifelong friend. He was confidant and advisor. There was scarcely a role he did not fulfill. His counsel was steady, his loyalty unwavering, and his presence a constant source of strength. Yet, beyond the personal bonds he nurtured, Everest profoundly belonged to the country of St. Lucia. He gave himself to public service with a seriousness that marked him as a man of immense value. At the time of his passing, he chaired several major national institutions, guiding them with wisdom and integrity, and his leadership was never about self-promotion, but about ensuring that the institutions entrusted to him served the people faithfully. What made Everest remarkable was the seamlessness with which he bridged the personal and the public. He could sit with you in quiet conversation, offering advice born of experience and affection, and then step into the national arena where his voice carried the weight of reason and responsibility. His life reminds us that true service begins in the heart, first to family, then to community, and finally to country. He leaves behind not only the memory of a devoted relative and friend, but also the enduring legacy of a servant leader whose contributions will long outlive him. May he rest in peace. I invite any member who wishes to comment on either of the two passing. If there is no member, I ask that we rise for moments of silence for the two. Thank you. Statement by ministers. Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, today I lay before this House the long-awaited report of the Salaries Review Commission. This commission, as we know, is constitutionally empowered to review the salaries of senior public servants, grade 19 and above, and the political directorate. Its mandate is clear: to act expeditiously following the conclusion of negotiations for public servants between grades 1 and 18, so that parity and fairness may be maintained across the public service. Mr. Speaker, the Commission comprises a chairperson appointed from among persons qualified and experienced in the fields of industrial relations, business management, economics, accountancy, law, medicine, or any other field of no less than 10 years standing. A representative of the government nominated by the Prime Minister. A representative of the opposition. A representative of the opposition nominated by the leader of the opposition. A representative of the private sector nominated by the Prime Minister after consultation with the appropriate bodies in the private sector. A person who, in the opinion of the Governor General, is qualified to represent the general public. And a representative of a public service union appointed under Section 52. The review covers 54 civil servants in grades 19 to 21 and parliamentary and other constitutional offices. The Salary Reviews Commission recommended a cumulative salary increase of 23% calculated over 6 trienniums, from 2011-2012 to 2027-2028, 17 years, at an annual rate of 1.35%, to be paid as follows: a cumulative salary increase of 20.3% covering the period April 1st, 2011 to March 31st, 2026, 15 years, retroactive. Salary increase of 1.35% effective April 1st, 2026. Salary increase of 1.35% effective April 1st, 2027. The Commission also considered the position of officers who retired during the prolonged period of salary stagnation. Thus, in keeping with the principle of pari passu, equivalence or equality, the Commission recommends that retired senior management be awarded a proportionate entitlement to a cumulative 23% salary increase calculated up to the year of retirement within the applicable triennium. Pensions and gratuities for retired officers in grades 19 to 21 be recomputed to reflect the revised salary levels. This approach ensures that retirees are not disadvantaged by the timing of their retirement and that pension outcomes more accurately reflect the value of service rendered. Importantly, the Commission advocacy for the recalculation of retroactive pay and the corresponding adjustment of pension benefits is grounded in the statutory framework governing the computation pension emoluments as set out in the Pensions Act Regulation 18. It is important to note that an identical approach is employed for rank and file employees across grades 1 to 18. The Commission also recommended revised allowances, including revised allowances for uniformed grade 19 police, fire, and correctional officers. Mr. Speaker, the work of the Salaries Review Commission is to ensure justice. Senior management, grades 19 to 21, and the political directorate have not received a salary increase from 2011, while other public officers have cumulatively received salary increases and changes in both basic salary and allowances, including the introduction of new allowances. Cumulative increases of 21.5% to the public service grades 1 to 18 up to the period 2022-2025, and for the triennium 2025 to 2028, a 7% salary increase. Mr. Speaker, senior public servants and members of the political directorate alike bear heavy responsibilities. Their remuneration must reflect the dignity of their offices and the burdens they carry. To deny them fair consideration is to weaken the institutions upon which our democracy rests. Mr. Speaker, I so move.
Minister for External Affairs.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for granting me leave to make a statement this morning. And this statement, Mr. Speaker, is on the matter of an agreement on third country nationals between the government of St. Lucia and the government of the United States of America. Mr. Speaker, it is no secret that small island states like St. Lucia are navigating a contemporary global political environment which is not only pregnant with the seeds of our country's continued marginalization, but of course is turbulent and complex. And that level of complexity, Mr. Speaker, is without precedent. During that time we have been navigating this turbulent environment, Mr. Speaker, we have practiced quiet diplomacy. And we have the dual strategy of what is considered to be strategic patience and strategic silence. When you are in turbulent weather, Mr. Speaker, there is something in aviation we call ANC. You aviate, you navigate, and then you communicate. We have been aviating, we have been navigating to ensure that our external relations is on course, and of course, the attitude of our country is in keeping with what is required in this very difficult environment. And so, Mr. Speaker, today I have come here to communicate. To accentuate, Mr. Speaker, that the guiding principle of St. Lucia's foreign policy is and must remain the diligent projection and safeguarding of the nation's interest, while thoughtfully considering the realities of the evolving international system. In the current global landscape, we observe a system marked by increased volatility, influenced by conflicts involving major powers, challenges to international law and multilateral institutions, fluctuations in global trade, the pressing issue of climate change, and the growing significance of migration concerns for developed nations. It is in this context that this statement on the subject of an agreement between St. Lucia and the United States of America on third country nationals must be received. In July 2025, officials of the Bureau of Western Hemisphere Affairs of the Department of State of the United States met with the ambassadors to Washington of Antigua and Barbuda, Dominica, St. Kitts and Nevis, and St. Lucia to have follow-up discussions regarding the citizenship by investment program of those countries and the possibility of working on ways to work together on related immigration issues. The United States officials explained that the U.S. had realized that a large number of individuals who come to the U.S. seeking refugee status often decline when given the option of obtaining asylum in a third country. This has led U.S. officials to believe that this system has actually worked, and has led U.S. officials to believe that these asylum claims are not genuine and often be deterred by presenting the individuals with other options. For this reason, U.S. officials were eager to expand the number of countries with which they have third-party agreements. These agreements currently exist in many countries, several of whom do not have citizenship by investment program. The U.S. officials therefore proposed the signing of similar agreements between the U.S. and each of the 4 countries. They were of the view that given the importance of such agreements to U.S. migration efforts, their very existence would appease parties who were actively advocating visa restrictions on CBI countries. They stressed repeatedly that the agreement would not dictate an automatic transfer of refugees, but rather a willingness to consider proposed refugees and to accept or deny them on a case-by-case basis. Following this initial meeting, discussions on a draft MOU on TCNs between St. Lucia and the U.S. continued between a team from the U.S. Embassy in Bridgetown, led by its chargé d'affaires, and a team from St. Lucia, comprising the External Affairs Minister, the Attorney General, the Permanent Secretary of the Ministry of External Affairs, and St. Lucia's Ambassador to Washington, and the Senior Advisor to the Minister of External Affairs. These negotiations have been careful and patient and have encompassed 3 stages, the first of which was completed by early January 2026. In January 2026, in his New Year's address to the nation, Prime Minister, the Most Honorable Philip J. Pierre, announced that the Cabinet of Ministers had approved a memorandum of understanding between the government of St. Lucia and the United States concerning the transfer of third country nationals, and that the MOU was non-binding and at the complete discretion of both governments. The Prime Minister went further to say, and I quote, "The MOU establishes a framework for cooperation and does not trigger any immediate transfer and future engagements. The MOU is orderly, transparent, and consistent with the laws of St. Lucia," unquote. The MOU was signed in Washington by St. Lucia's ambassador to the United States. The purpose and scope of the MOU are to memorialize a non-binding understanding between the governments to facilitate the transfer of third country nationals from the United States to St. Lucia. The MOU further states at Section 2.1, the government of the United States of America may, in its complete discretion, propose to the government of St. Lucia the transfer of such third country nationals, and the government of St. Lucia may, in its complete discretion, consider accepting such a proposal in whole or in part. At Section 2.2, prior to any transfer, the government of the United States of America intends to provide the government of St. Lucia documentation of each proposed third country nationals, biographical, medical, and criminal documentation, to the extent available and permitted by law. The MOU committed both governments to develop operating procedures for the implementation of the MOU. The logistical details for operating the MOU therefore became the second stage of the negotiations with the U.S. on the issue of TCNs. It was recognized, however, that since the U.S. had approached a number of OECS member states, that given the Regional Economic Integration Treaty between those countries, it should be in the interest to negotiate operating procedures as a group so as to work out common modalities. However, while one meeting was held for that purpose, the regional approach did not endure, and in the end, each country negotiated a separate agreement with the United States of America. In July 2026, therefore, St. Lucia and the United States reached agreement on the text of the operating procedures for the MOU. The main provisions as follows. Section 2, eligibility of individuals for removal. Individuals eligible for removal to St. Lucia under the MOU are individuals who are 1. Third country nationals with final or expedited orders of removal, and 2. Individuals who receive medical authorization to travel from the U.S. Department of Homeland Security, and B. Individuals not eligible for removal to St. Lucia under the MOU are 1. Unaccompanied children under the age of 18, citizens or nationals of St. Lucia, and 3. Individuals with criminal records known to the government of the United States, except in relation to violations of U.S. immigration law. Section 3, preliminary number of individuals removed. The government of the United States of America and the government of St. Lucia intend for no more than 10 individuals to be transferred per quarter. Section 5, procedure prior to reception. A, 5 days prior to a removal, the government of the United States of America intends to send the government of St. Lucia via the U.S. Embassy in Bridgetown the flight manifest of the persons expected to be removed. The government of St. Lucia is expected to respond within 2 days with a manifest approved cases, and any persons not included on the manifest are not expected to be allowed on the flight. B, for all persons proposed for transfer, the U.S. Department of Homeland Security intends to provide the following information if available. 1, nationality. 2, information regarding whether the person is accompanied. 3, date of birth. 4, sex and criminal record to the extent known to the United States. The major consideration for St. Lucia in all this has been the extent to which the United States was committed to financially support the program it had requested of St. Lucia to undertake. Taking into account St. Lucia's limited resources and circumstances, Mr. Speaker, given the potential policy, financial, and institutional implications of such an arrangement, the government considered it necessary to undertake a comprehensive technical assessment to determine the resources, governance arrangements, and financial commitments that would be required to implement the program effectively while safeguarding St. Lucia's national interest. Last week, the Cabinet of Ministers agreed to a memorandum from the Ministry of External Affairs proposing a comprehensive package of financial requirements by St. Lucia for implementation of the agreement. And this has been submitted to the U.S. Embassy in Bridgetown. We are currently awaiting a response. St. Lucia and the United States are therefore in the third and final phase of the negotiations over TCNs. Mr. Speaker, it should also be noted that under the operating procedures, the United States has also agreed to provide funds to a competent international organization to assist with the services to be provided to individuals transferred under the MOU. To that end, the Ministry of External Affairs has already engaged the International Organization for Migration to finalize collaboration on that issue. As I said at the beginning of the statement, in our foreign policy actions, we will do nothing that would jeopardize the national interest of St. Lucia. Our strategy is to promote and protect St. Lucia's vital interest. We do so in this instance in the spirit of international cooperation, which should always be one of our principles, but cognizant of the geopolitical realities of this Western Hemisphere in which we find ourselves, unmindful of the limits of our sovereignty in the turbulence and uncertainty of current international relations. Mr. Speaker, I felt it was of absolute necessity for me as the Foreign Minister of St. Lucia to issue the statement after we have navigated, and now, of course, to communicate. And we shall be in touch. It will be very transparent moving forward, and we shall speak from time to time on any issue that this government believes is of utmost importance to the people of this country. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Papers to be laid. Prime Minister and Minister for Finance, Constituency Development, People Empowerment, Justice and National Security.
I beg to lay the following papers standing in my name. Statutory Instrument number 117 of 2026, Excise Tax Amendment of Schedule 1, number 9 order. Statutory Instrument number 118 of 2026, Income Tax Exemption number 3 order. Statutory Instrument number 119 of 2026, Excise Tax Amendment of Schedule 1, number 10 order. Statutory Instrument number 120 of 2026, Customs Duties Amendment of Schedule 4 order. Statutory Instrument number 121 of 2026, Customs Service Charge Amendment of Schedule order. Statutory Instrument number 24 of 2026, Income Tax Rate of Interest order. Statutory Instrument number 127 of 2026, Alien Landholding Licensing Exemption, Tariq Ibrahim Hussein and Kathleen Jean Hussein order. Statutory Instrument number 128 of 2026, Fiscal Incentives Rodney Bay Diagnostics Center Inc. order. Statutory Instrument number 129 of 2026, Fiscal Incentives Big Chief Big House Limited order. Statutory Instrument number 130 of 2026, Fiscal Incentives Iron Renewables Limited order. Statutory Instrument number 133 of 26, Public Debt Management Act, Resolution of Parliament to borrow to finance the 2026-2027 budget and to refinance existing debts. Statutory Instrument number 134 of 2026, Public Debt Management Act, Resolution of Parliament to borrow for capital or current expenditure, Caribbean Resilient Renewable Energy Infrastructure Investment Facility Project. Statutory Instrument number 135 of 2026, Public Finance Management Act, Resolution of Parliament to borrow for capital or current expenditure, additional financing for the Caribbean Digital Transformation Project. Statutory Instrument number 143 of 26, Public Finance Management Act, Resolution of Parliament to borrow for capital or current expenditure, Caribbean Efficient and Green Energy Buildings Project. Statutory Instrument number 137 of 2026, Public Finance Management Act, Resolution of Parliament to borrow for capital or current expenditure, St. Lucia Urban Resilient Flood Investment Project. Statutory Instrument number 138 of 2026, Public Finance Management Act, Resolution of Parliament to borrow for capital or current expenditure, technical assistance, Julian R. Hunt Highway and Secondary Roads Improvement Project preparation. Statutory Instrument number 139 of 2026, Public Finance Management Act, Resolution of Parliament to authorize the Minister of Finance to guarantee borrowing for St. Lucia Air and Seaports Authority for the Technical Assistance Port Development Preparation Project. Statutory Instrument number 140 of 2026, Value Added Tax Act, Resolution of Parliament to approve draft Value Added Tax Amendment of Schedule 1 Order. Statutory Instrument number 141 of 2026, Value Added Tax Act, Resolution of Parliament to approve draft Value Added Tax Alteration of Rate or Penalty number 2 Order. Statutory Instrument number 142 of 2026, Value Added Tax Resolution of the House of Assembly to approve the draft Value Added Tax Alteration of Rate of Interest number 2 Order. Statutory Instrument number 145 of 2026, Excise Tax Amendment of Schedule 1 number 11 Order. Statutory Instrument number 147 of 2026, Alien Landholding Licenses Exemption, Clinton Emmanuel Wilkes Order. Statutory Instrument number 148 of 2026, Alien Landholding Licenses Exemption, Horace Anthony Bryan Order. Statutory Instrument number 150 of 2026, Value Added Tax Amendment of Schedule 1 Order. Statutory Instrument number 151 of 2026, Value Added Tax Alteration of Rate or Penalty number 2 Order. Statutory Instrument number 152 of 26, Value Added Tax Alteration of Rate of Interest number 2 Order. Statutory Instrument number 163 of 2026, Special Development Areas Amendment of Schedule 1 number 2 Order. Statutory Instrument number 166 of 2026, Excise Tax Amendment of Schedule number 2 Order. Statutory Instrument number 167 of 2026, Sovereign Wealth Fund, St. Lucia Act, Commencement Order. Statutory Instrument Salary Reviews Commission Report 2026.
Acting Minister for Tourism, Commerce, Investment, Creative Industries, Culture and Heritage.
Mr. Speaker, I would like to lead the following papers on behalf of the Minister. Statutory Instrument number 122 of 2026, Tourism Development, Bay Gardens Limited Order. Statutory Instrument number 123 of 2026, Tourism Development, Gyro Management Limited Order. Statutory Instrument number 125 of 2026, Tourism Development, Flavian Executive Rights Order. Statutory Instrument number 126 of 2026, Tourism Development, Windjammer Landing Company Limited Order. Statutory Instrument number 131 of 2026, Tourism Development, East Winds Resort Limited Amendment Order. Statutory Instrument number 132 of 2026, Tourism Development, the Certain Corporation Amendment Order. Statutory Instrument number 143 of 2026, Community Tourism Development, Bon Vivant Chateau Amendment Order. Statutory Instrument number 144 of 2026, Price Control Amendment number 10 Order. Statutory Instrument number 149 of 2026, Tourism Development, Excellence Transportation Services Order. Statutory Instrument number 153 of 2026, Tourism Development, Brown Taxi Service Limited Order. Statutory Instrument number 154 of 2026, Tourism Development, Lakai Vet Lux Order. Statutory Instrument number 155 of 2026, Tourism Development, Laviquail Properties Inc. Order. Statutory Instrument number 156 of 2026, Tourism Development, Marceline Transfer and Tours Order. Statutory Instrument number 157 of 2026, Tourism Development, Park Easy Taxi Service Order, Statutory Instrument number 158 of 2026, Tourism Development, PABS Executive Taxi Services Order, Statutory Instrument number 159 of 2026, Tourism Development, ATV Experience Amendment Order, Statutory Instrument number 160 of 2026, Tourism Development, Stewart Executive Transfers and Tours Limited Order, Statutory Instrument number 161 of 2026, Tourism Development, Harbour Vista Inn Inc. Order, Statutory Instrument number 162 of 2026, Tourism Development, Maison de Fleur Order, Statutory Instrument number 164 of 2026, Regulated Substances, Appointment of the Board of the Regulated Substances Authority, number 2, Notice.
Minister for Health, Wellness and Nutrition.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I lay the following standing in my name. Statutory Instrument number 115 of 2026, Public Health, Communicable and Non-Notifiable Diseases Amendment Regulations. Statutory Instrument number 146 of 2026, Health Practitioners Amendment of Schedule Order.
Minister for Equity, Social Justice, Gender, Older Persons, Labor, Cooperatives and Consumer Affairs.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I beg to lay the following papers appearing in my name. Statutory Instrument number 116 of 2026, Price Control Amendment number 9 Order. Statutory Instrument number 165 of 2026, Price Control Amendment number 11 Order.
Motions. Minister for Finance.
Be it resolved that Parliament, by affirmative resolution, approves the draft value-added tax amendment Schedule 1, Number 2 Order, which amends Schedule 1 of the Act to include as zero-rated goods for a period of 5 years, commencing from the 2nd day of August 2026 and terminating on the 1st day of August 2031. A supply of goods under the following customs tariff headings: solar panel mounts, data loggers, complete system, charge controllers and inverters, deep cycle batteries, communication cabling Ethernet switches, protective devices, communication devices, cable insulator switches and insulators, MC4 connectors, battery clamps, junction boxes, combiner boxes, solar panels, direct current DC, alternative current AC cables, control devices, other DC AC components, control components, a supply of the installation service for photovoltaic systems. Mr. Speaker, I made it. Mr. Speaker, as you're well aware, members are aware, Mr. Speaker, there is a movement in the entire world, particularly countries that do not produce fossil fuels, to look for alternative means of energy. Mr. Speaker, and these two alternative means are usually the sun, solar, or the wind. Mr. Speaker, St. Lucia spends a tremendous amount of foreign exchange on the import of fossil fuels. And Mr. Speaker, anytime there are changes in the price of oil, the people of St. Lucia suffer, Mr. Speaker. Forget the noise of the opposition on the price of fuel, and forget the noise on who they want to blame for what's happening in Iran. Fact is, Mr. Speaker, St. Lucia has absolutely no control over the price of fuel. No control over the cost of fuel, Mr. Speaker. And by extension, no control over the price of fuel. So every time there is any instability in the world, the people of St. Lucia suffer. That means, Mr. Speaker, that we do not only suffer from the increase in internal cost and prices, but we also suffer from the cost of bringing goods into St. Lucia, whether by sea or by air. But Mr. Speaker, when the cost of oil goes up on the world market, the cost of air travel goes up. The cost of our tourism goes up, Mr. Speaker. When the cost of oil goes up on the world market, the cost of shipping goes up. We have supply chain issues, Mr. Speaker, in that cost of goods that come in because of the cost of transportation, the cost of the price in St. Lucia will inevitably go up, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, and contrary to, again, to the noise, there's absolutely nothing we can do about that. In St. Lucia, Mr. Speaker, as we speak, we subsidize LPG gas, both the 20 pounds and the 22 pound cylinder, Mr. Speaker. We subsidize it in certain cases, Mr. Speaker. The subsidy is near the cost that the consumer pays for LPG gas, both the 20 pound and the 22 pound cylinder, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we subsidize, and in some cases, we get negative revenue on the cost of, on the price of fuel, Mr. Speaker, that goes into every car or every minibus, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, I stated about 2 weeks ago that government's revenue has decreased by $44 million for this budget year, Mr. Speaker. But the government continues to provide the same services. In certain cases, the government continues to increase these services, Mr. Speaker, to the people of St. Lucia, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, that is why it's almost criminal when certain elements in the society want to cause institutions that see about the welfare of the people of the country, institutions that deal with poverty, institutions that deal with the underserved, Mr. Speaker, institutions that deal with the welfare of single mothers, with the education of low-income children, Mr. Speaker. It's almost criminal, Mr. Speaker, if not criminal, when people deliberately, on the guise of political opportunism, try to interfere and tamper with these institutions, Mr. Speaker. Because we know, because of these external factors, it is so difficult for small islands like St. Lucia to survive. We pay for things we know nothing about. We never caused any war in Iran. We never caused any issues in the Middle East, but the people of this country are paying for that, Mr. Speaker. And instead of elements in the opposition try to unify and work with the government to see about the welfare of the underserved, the welfare of the poor people, Mr. Speaker, because they have been politically rejected by the people of St. Lucia, they join with all kinds of powers to degrade this country, to spoil this country's good name, in the hope that they will get political power, Mr. Speaker. But as I always say, the people who determine political power are the people of St. Lucia. So, Mr. Speaker, we are moving into the realm of renewable energy by allowing the items, the solar panels, the connectors, the batteries, Mr. Speaker, that people use to convert the sun into energy, Mr. Speaker. We are causing it to be zero rated, which means you will pay no VAT on these items, Mr. Speaker, thus lowering the cost of these items, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, that is another move that the government is making, another move that the government is taking to reduce, albeit indirectly, Mr. Speaker, the cost of living, the cost of doing business in St. Lucia, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, you heard the Minister of Infrastructure and Energy. He was very thorough when he introduced the Electricity Supply Act, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the Electricity Supply Act is a work in progress. It's a work in progress, Mr. Speaker. It's going to be amended, it's going to be changed, but Mr. Speaker, it is the duty of this government, and I say it without any fear or contradiction, it is the duty of this government to protect the underserved, to protect the people in this country who cannot afford basic costs of living and who cannot afford to improve their standard of living. That is the duty of this government, Mr. It's the solemn duty of George Charles's party to ensure that this happens, Mr. Speaker. And no matter how they try to destroy an institution that was formed specifically to deal with the underserved by lies, by innuendo, Mr. Speaker, by blatant lies, Mr. Speaker, this government, with these measures like that, and with other measures that we continue to take, Mr. Speaker, as we speak, children going to early childhood education centers. Later this month, the government will increase the allowance to these centers, Mr. Speaker, to allow them to have a better schooling, Mr. Speaker. As we speak, Mr. Speaker, this government is going to allow over $2 million in education support for the children of low-income people in this country. As we speak, Mr. Speaker, we will spend over $2 million to beautify this country for a STEP program and to allow mothers income to send their children to school, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, that is what they want to fight. They want to develop a society where they can call the people, pronounce the word, mendicant. That's what they want to do. That's the society they want to promote, Mr. Speaker. That's the society, Mr. Speaker. And that is why they will fight against these institutions. And that is why they may even fight, Mr. Speaker, against zero-rating the VAT for solar power, for solar energy, Mr. Power. Mr. Speaker, these people are deceitful. These people hate St. Lucia. These people want to burn the house to kill a rat, Mr. Speaker. These people refuse to understand that the people of St. Lucia have spoken. They refuse to understand it. The people have spoken, and the people will speak again. And again, Mr. Speaker. Because, Mr. Speaker, it's hurtful. It is really hurtful, Mr. Speaker, when you have a situation where this Prime Minister has allowed all the systems, all the protocols to be followed. This Prime Minister has not interfered in any of these things. We have allowed the system to take its place. All we are asking for is patience. Wait. There is a process in everything. All we are saying is wait. Wait. Wait for the process to unfold themselves. But they are prophets, they are Gades, they know what will happen, they know who will do what, they know who will do when, they know everything, Mr. Speaker. What they didn't know is the report was here. Not the Salary Reviews Commission, Mr. Speaker, the other report. You know well what I'm talking about. You know well, you know too. So, Mr. Speaker, that report, it showed exactly who is to blame. And it showed exactly what will happen in the future. But, Mr. Speaker, we want it to remain as you are. We want no change. Leave it as it is, Mr. Speaker. No change. We like it. Don't play with that. Leave that out here. So, Mr. Speaker, I would like members to support this motion to zero rate the items that deal with renewable energy, these items. And I want to say to the people of this country that we will always, in our transition to solar energy, we will always protect the lower income people in this country who can't afford solar panels, etc. We will always protect them, Mr. Speaker. It's our singular duty that we are proud of. The same way we are going to support all the institutions that deal with the people in this country who are underserved, who have low income, or who do not enjoy the quality of life that we all want to enjoy. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable members, the question is that Parliament, by affirmative resolution, approve the draft value-added tax amendment of Schedule 1, Number 2 order, which amends Schedule 1 of the Act to include as zero-rated goods for a period of 5 years, commencing from the 2nd day of August 2026 and terminating on the 1st day of August 2031. Solar panel mounts, data loggers, complete systems, charge controllers and inverters, deep cycle batteries, communication cabling Ethernet switches, protective devices, communication devices, cable isolator switches, isolators, MC4 connectors, battery clamps, junction boxes, combiner and combiner boxes, solar panels, direct current DC, alternative current AC cables, control devices, other DC AC components and control components, and B, a supply of the installation service for photovoltaic systems. The member for Babino.
Mr. Speaker, I rise in strong support of the motion to zero rate goods associated with the supply of solar energy, if I can paraphrase the motion, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I regard this motion not merely as a taxation measure, but as a strategic intervention in energy policy, economic competitiveness, and sustainable development, particularly for our small, micro, and medium enterprises, what we call MSMEs, which constitute the backbone of our tourism and commercial sectors. Mr. Speaker, as you rightly heard, as a small developing state, St. Lucia remains highly exposed to global energy price volatility beyond our control. These fluctuations directly affect transportation, productivity, hospitality services, retail operations, and ultimately the cost of doing business and the cost of maintaining our destination's competitiveness. Mr. Speaker, energy security is therefore economic security and tourism competitiveness. One of our most abundant and reliable natural resources, Mr. Speaker, is the sun. And that is an asset we must more deliberately harness to strengthen our productive sectors. Mr. Speaker, I view this motion as removing barriers to renewable energy. The transition to renewable energy requires more than policy intent, Mr. Speaker. It requires genuine affordability, particularly for MSMEs in tourism and commerce that often face significant upfront capital constraints. Mr. Speaker, the motion appropriately reduces the tax burden on full voltaic system, not only solar panels, but also installation, equipment, wiring, inverters, and associated services. If we are to encourage meaningful adoption across guest houses, hotels, restaurants, tour operators, and small retail enterprises, we must ensure, Mr. Speaker, that the complete system is financially accessible and commercially viable. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, as you already know, electricity remains one of the most significant operating costs for both households and businesses. For MSMEs in particular, high utility expenses directly compress margins and constrains reinvestment and expansion. Reducing this burden increases disposable income for households and improves cash flows for businesses, enabling greater investment in service quality, staff retention, and enterprise growth. In this context, Mr. Speaker, renewable energy is not solely an environmental initiative. It is also a cost of living and a cost of doing business intervention, as you rightly heard from our Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, we must ensure that access is not confined to large corporations or high-income households. Reducing upfront costs is essential to democratizing energy access across our productive economy. Mr. Speaker, I see the motion as strengthening tourism competitiveness. Within the sector, sustainability is no longer optional. It is a market expectation. Visitors are increasingly selecting destinations that demonstrate environmental responsibility. Hotels, villas, and tourism-related MSMEs that adopt renewable energy strengthen St. Lucia's position as a green, forward-looking destination. Lower energy costs also enhance price competitiveness, enabling tourism operators to reinvest savings into service quality, infrastructure enhancement, and workforce development. Mr. Speaker, the expansion of solar energy will generate employment opportunities in installation, maintenance, engineering, supply chains, and technical training. It will also create new entrepreneurial pathways for both young people and MSMEs, positioning renewable energy as a vital and commercial sector, not solely an environmental objective. This represents economic diversification in practice and aligns directly with our broader development and trade agenda. Mr. Speaker, each unit of renewable energy generated reduces dependence on imported fossil fuels and strengthens national resilience. For an import-dependent economy such as ours, this is particularly significant. It reduces foreign exchange pressure and enhances stability for businesses operating in tourism and commerce. While we will not eliminate fossil fuel dependence overnight, we can progressively reduce vulnerability and build a more resilient and competitive energy system. Mr. Speaker, a lot of people will ask, since you are removing taxes, that means that you are losing revenue. So whilst tax concession may result in a shortfall in revenue, Mr. Speaker, this may be assessed against a broader economic gains, increased private sector investment, and expansion of MSME activity, job creation, improved tourism competitiveness, and reduce exposure to global energy price volatility. The key consideration here, Mr. Speaker, is that whilst energy is foregone, but the scale of the economic activity, productivity gains, and long-term value creation, this measure will unlock that. Mr. Speaker, it is essential that these concessions are effectively passed to end users, households and businesses in the form of reduced installation and system costs. We must also ensure appropriate standards, certification, safety compliance, and fair market practice as this sector expands, so that confidence in renewable energy investment is maintained. Mr. Speaker, this motion represents a practical alignment of our economic, tourism, and environmental practices. We have the opportunity to reduce energy costs, strengthen MSME, enhance tourism competitiveness, and create employment, improve resilience, and accelerate our clean energy transition. Mr. Speaker, the sun should not only warm St. Lucia, it should help power its businesses, its tourism industry, and its development. Mr. Speaker, for these reasons, I fully support the motion before this House. I thank you.
Member for Swazell.
That's fine. Mr. Speaker, last night I shared some information with my colleagues because I saw something and, Mr. Speaker, I felt gloom. I felt sad because I saw a member from the opposition sharing what was blatant, dishonest information. And you know, I said, is this what politics is supposed to be about? You know, you sit in the house and then you know very well what you're putting out to the public is an untruth, but you do it. You do it. But you know, Mr. Speaker, when I picked up my papers and I looked at what was done for discussion today, I quickly overcome that. And I understood why the people of St. Lucia gave us this mandate and keep people like that in the minority. Because you are disingenuous with the people of St. Lucia. And that is not correct. So I rise to give my absolute and enthusiastic support to the Honorable Prime Minister on this profoundly important resolution. Mr. Speaker, during the recent budget debate, and again when I addressed the St. Lucia Hospitality and Tourism Association, I spoke about a harsh reality facing this nation. As long as we rely entirely on imported fossil fuels, our light bills and the operating costs of our businesses will always be at the mercy of global crisis. Mr. Speaker, when the geopolitical wind blows in the Middle East or in Eastern Europe, the St. Lucian customer or consumer feels the chill right here at home. And Mr. Speaker, if you come to Durban, Durban is a place that's naturally chilly. So when the additional chill comes in, you understand the Creole, right, Mr. Speaker? Yes. I stated then, Mr. Speaker, that the Ministry of Public Utilities and this Labour Party government, under the guidance of this great Minister of Finance, we are aggressively driving the transition towards a sustainable energy mix. I promise that we were creating an enabling environment to shield this country from global price volatility. Well, Mr. Speaker, this resolution before the House today is undeniable proof of this promise. We are not just talking about green energy, Mr. Speaker. We are taking the heavy tax burden off the backs of the people who want to embrace it. By zero-rating the value-added tax on the solar panels, deep cycle batteries, inverters, and all associated equipment and components for the next 5 years, this Labour Party government is doing something revolutionary. Mr. Speaker, some people may not know what a deep cycle battery is. You know, it's not the same battery that you have in the car traditionally. It's a battery that can be discharged quite more significantly and then quickly resume to its normal state. And it's a key component in our renewable energy move. So these batteries and these components, highlighting them single-handedly it's a great move for the industry. Because a lot of times when people went to customs and immigration, they would find themselves having trouble with the classification, where sometimes even the people working within the system did not understand how, for instance, an isolator or even the combiner box would benefit a solar system. So I'm happy to see that this is actually on the list. By zero rating all of these items, colleagues, like you said, it's absolutely revolutionary. We are democratizing energy. That is what the Labour Party government is doing. And Mr. Speaker, I want the House to pay close attention to Section B of this resolution. Section B of this resolution, we are not just removing the tax on the equipment. And people have to realize the significance of this. We are removing the VAT on the installation services of photovoltaic systems. Do you know what that means, Mr. Speaker? It means we are directly supporting the young electricians, the technicians, and the local contractors, not just in Choiseul Saltibus, but across St. Lucia, who are installing these systems. Mr. Speaker, in Choiseul Saltibus, we have people like Popeye, Vibert, Ambert, Dave, Alvin. Outside of Choiseul, we have Bolo. We have, you all may have known of Pepper. Pepper, the member for Library would know that. The member for Viewfort North would know this gentleman very well. We have giants in the renewable industry like Sabi. Sabi is one of the first persons who went off-grid, what you call a standalone system. So you don't need the utility to be at your premise, but you could harness the full renewable energy either through PV, photovoltaic, or through wind. So Sabi did that, and I believe he's still doing that today. So he'll be very happy for this move that's happening here today. But you also have hobbies like Silas in Durban. And if you go to Silas's place, what you will see is that Silas's home has power even when the electricity goes out. And he has this lovely, he has what you have on the list here as a charge controller, an inverter. So he has a solar panel, he has his charge controller, which would cause the battery to be charged at the right voltage, and then he has the inverter which would change the DC voltage into AC. So it's usable within the household, so you could connect your equipment and so forth. But you know, Silas has this beautiful little fish pond, and his oxygen pump is actually powered through PV. So when you go there, it's really an admirable thing to see. So you see, Mr. Speaker, we are boosting the green economy. We are creating local jobs, and we are making renewable energy more accessible to our people. Mr. Speaker, this is what discipline, delivery, and dignity looks like in action. We are giving the power back to the people, literally and figuratively. We are building a St. Lucia that is kinder to our climate and kinder to the bottom line of every household and business. So, Mr. Speaker, this is not simply about solar panels. This is building on what the vision of this government is. A vision where we could advance renewable energy systems, we can move on the dependence of fossil fuels, we can move away from the volatility that comes with producing energy through fossil fuels. This is about energy independence. It is about going in this direction. This is about affordability. This is about resilience, colleagues. And this is about giving the people of St. Lucia a greater measure of control over their energy future. Mr. Speaker, I profoundly and proudly support this resolution. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Member for Library.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for granting me leave to offer my reflections on the motion before us. Mr. Speaker, in giving careful and sensible treatment to the motion, I want to set my intervention in motion by providing unbridled support for the resolution before this Honorable House to approve the value-added tax amendment of Schedule 1, Number 2, Order 2026. At first glance, Mr. Speaker, this may appear to be a relatively straightforward fiscal measure. A proposal to zero rate for value-added tax purposes a range of equipment used in photovoltaic systems, together with the installation services associated with those systems. But this resolution, Mr. Speaker, is about considerable more than taxation. It is about the kind of energy future we are building for St. Lucia. It is about energy security. It is about economic competitiveness, as indicated by the minister, the acting minister for tourism. But as my colleagues who spoke before me accentuated, it is about reducing our exposure to imported fossil fuels and international energy price volatility. And this is what it is all about, Mr. Speaker. The present conflict, for example, in the Middle East and continuing uncertainty surrounding the Strait of Hormuz have once again demonstrated how quickly geopolitical events can drive increases in global oil prices and expose fuel importing countries like ours that depend a lot on international trade as a small, open, and vulnerable economy to cost over which we have little control, Mr. Speaker. It is about creating opportunities for households and businesses to participate directly in the renewable energy transition. And fundamentally, Mr. Speaker, it is about translating government's energy policy and recent legislative reforms into practical measures that can make a difference in the lives of ordinary St. Lucians in this country. Mr. Speaker, The resolution before us provides for a period of 5 years, commencing on the 2nd of August 2026 and terminating on the 1st of August 2031, during which specified equipment and the installation of photovoltaic systems will be zero rated for value-added tax purposes. Revolutionary in every respect, Mr. Speaker. The range of equipment, and I think it was covered by both the Honorable Prime Minister and even the Speaker, it includes from solar panel mounts, data loggers, complete systems, charge controllers and inverters, to DC and AC cables, control devices, and other components. Just as importantly, Mr. Speaker, the concession extends to the installation service for photovoltaic systems. Mr. Speaker, not just on the hardware, but on the installation. This is an added dimension of a government with a vision that understands the nexus between energy security and policy to the ordinary life and development of the people of this country. Because a solar system is not simply a solar panel. It is an integrated system. For a household or business, the cost of investing in photovoltaic generation includes the panels themselves, but also the mounting equipment, conversion equipment, storage where required, safety equipment, control systems, cabling, connectors, and professional installation. If we are serious about making renewable energy more accessible, then our incentives must recognize the full cost associated with adopting the technology. This resolution does precisely that, Mr. Speaker. This measure should not be considered in isolation. In fact, Mr. Speaker, it forms part of a much wider and deliberate policy direction being pursued by this government. St. Lucia's National Energy Policy 2023-2030 establishes the strategic direction for the transformation of our energy sector. At the heart of that transformation is the objective of reducing our dependence on imported fossil fuels, increasing the utilization of indigenous renewable energy resources, improving energy security, and building a more resilient and sustainable economy. And as I navigate my presentation, you will see how it's a categorical imperative, Mr. Speaker. The government has established an objective of achieving 50% renewable energy penetration in the electricity mix by 2030. By 2030. That is an ambitious objective, Mr. Speaker. But ambition without implementation remains just aspiration. The transition must be supported by policy. It must be supported by legislation. It must be supported by investment. And it must be supported by practical incentives which enable households and businesses to participate. This is the context in which this resolution should be understood. Mr. Speaker, there is an especially important connection between the resolution before us today and another significant measure which this Parliament recently approved, the Electricity Act of 2026. When this Honorable House considered that legislation, Mr. Speaker, we were doing much more than replacing an old legislative framework. We were modernizing the legal and regulatory architecture governing St. Lucia's electricity sector to respond to a fundamentally changing energy landscape. So we must move into energy diversification, Mr. Speaker. The previous framework was developed largely around a vertically integrated electricity system dependent principally on fossil fuel generation. The energy landscape has changed. Renewable technologies have become increasingly viable. Consumers increasingly wish to generate their own electricity. Independent producers and renewable energy developers seek opportunities to participate in electricity generation. Climate change requires us to build greater resilience into our infrastructure. And our economy requires an electricity sector capable of supporting competitiveness, investment, and sustainable development. The Electricity Act responds to those realities. It establishes a framework covering electricity regulation, renewable energy integration, competitive procurement, long-term resource and resilience planning, consumer protection, self-generation, and participation by renewable energy producers. Importantly, the Act provides for renewable energy capacity targets and for the competitive procurement of utility-scale renewable energy generation. It also recognizes, Mr. Speaker, something fundamental about the modern electricity sector. Consumers are no longer necessarily only consumers. Households, businesses, and institutions can increasingly become generators of electricity. Through the framework established for self-generation, St. Lucians have a pathway to generate electricity using renewable energy technologies and to participate more actively in the country's energy future. And it leads directly to the measure before us today, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the Electricity Act creates the legal framework for greater participation in renewable energy. This resolution helps to make that participation more affordable. There would be little value in creating a statutory framework which encourages St. Lucians to invest in renewable energy self-generation while maintaining unnecessary fiscal barriers to acquiring and installing the very technology required to do so. This is why these measures must be seen together, Mr. Speaker. The Electricity Act addresses the regulatory framework. This resolution addresses part of the cost barrier, and the National Energy Policy provides the strategic direction. Together, they form part of a coherent approach to transforming St. Lucia's electricity sector. This is how public policy should work. We establish the national objective, we create the appropriate legislative and regulatory environment, because I have said before, Mr. Speaker, that sometimes the best policies could be frustrated by poor legislation. We remove unnecessary barriers to investment. And then we create opportunities for citizens and businesses to participate. Mr. Speaker, by zero rating, not merely solar panels, but a wider range of components required for functioning photovoltaic systems, and by extending that treatment to installation services, we are aligning fiscal policy with the opportunities created under the Electricity Act. We are saying that the legislative reform of the electricity sector must be accompanied by practical measures which enable St. Lucians to participate in that reform. Mr. Speaker, one of the greatest obstacles to renewable energy adoption remains the initial capital cost. A household may understand the potential benefits of installing PV systems. A small business may recognize that generating some of electricity from solar energy could help manage operating expenses. A hotel may recognize the contribution renewable generation can make to controlling energy costs and strengthening its environmental credentials. But understanding the benefits does not automatically provide the capital required to make the investment. The upfront cost matters, Mr. Speaker. Government, therefore, has a legitimate role within the limits of prudent fiscal management in addressing barriers that discourage citizens and businesses from investing in technologies which advance and establish national policy objectives. Zero rating PV equipment and installation services is one such intervention. It says to the citizen, if you are prepared to invest your own resources in St. Lucia's renewable energy transition, government is prepared to help reduce the fiscal cost of that investment. It says to businesses, if you are prepared to invest in technologies that can improve energy efficiency and competitiveness, government wants to facilitate that investment. And it says to investors and renewable energy industry, St. Lucia intends to create an environment in which renewable energy investment, technical expertise, installation services, and green businesses can expand, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the Electricity Act also recognized the direct relationship between renewable energy and national energy security. St. Lucia remains heavily dependent on imported fossil fuel. We have been saying this like a recurring decimal, like an overworked notion. But it's just a fundamental reality that stares us in the face, for which we need an urgent response. And of course, this particular motion before us is actually providing the necessary framework. And of course, removing impediments to achieving that fundamental objective. That dependence exposes our economy to forces over which we have little or no control. We do not determine the international price of oil. We do not determine the geopolitical events which affect global energy markets. We do not control international freight costs. And we cannot insulate ourselves completely from the consequences when those costs increase. But we can determine the extent to which our economy remains structurally dependent upon imported energy. And that is why increasing the utilization of indigenous renewable energy resources is so important. Every economically viable unit of electricity that we can generate from our own renewable resources represents over time an opportunity to reduce our exposure to imported fuels. Every household that can responsibly generate part of its electricity requirement from the sun becomes a participant in strengthening national energy security. Every business that can reduce its exposure to volatile energy costs strengthens its own resilience and potentially its competitiveness. And every reduction in imported fuel requirements creates an opportunity to retain more foreign exchange within the St. Lucian economy. Mr. Speaker, the proposition we advance when considering the electricity legislation remains as relevant today. Energy security is national security. Affordable electricity is economic policy. Renewable energy is environmental policy. And resilient infrastructure is climate policy. The Electricity Act brought these objectives together within a modern legislative framework. This resolution helps put the technologies of that transition within greater reach of the St. Lucian people. Mr. Speaker, as Minister responsible for international trade, I want to emphasize another dimension of this policy. Energy policy is also economic policy, and energy policy is trade policy. The cost of electricity affects the competitiveness of St. Lucian enterprises. Our manufacturers feel it, our hotels feel it, our restaurants feel it, our farmers and agro-processors feel it, our retailers and small businesses feel it, and ultimately consumers feel it. Energy is an input into almost every productive activity in our economy. When energy costs increase, the cost of producing goods and delivering services increases. For a small open economy such as ours, strengthening our capacity to utilize indigenous renewable energy resources therefore has implications for national competitiveness. It also has implications for our balance of payments. For generations, a significant share of our energy requirement has had to be met via imports. That means foreign exchange leaving St. Lucia to purchase fuel purchased elsewhere. Our renewable energy transition offers an opportunity, offers an escape, progressively and responsibly to alter that equation, Mr. Speaker. This is why renewable energy should never be viewed merely as an environmental program. It is an economic resilience program. It is an energy security program. It is a competitiveness program. And it is part of our wider national development strategy. Mr. Speaker, there is also an important opportunity for St. Lucian enterprise and employment. The expansion of PV systems requires more than imported equipment. It requires engineers, as my colleague from Schwozel said. It requires electricians. It requires trained installers and technicians. It requires expertise in battery storage, power electronics, monitoring systems, and energy management. It requires maintenance services. It requires financing. And it creates opportunities for businesses to grow and expand. And as you can readily appreciate, Mr. Speaker, the growth and development of the private sector are important for the dynamism of the St. Lucian economy. Our objective must therefore not simply to import more renewable energy equipment. Our objective should be to build a St. Lucian renewable energy industry around that equipment. We should increasingly train St. Lucians to design, install, maintain, and manage these systems. We should encourage our young people to view renewable energy, electrical engineering, energy management, and green technologies as areas of professional and, of course, business opportunity. And I see this, Mr. Speaker, as a particular opportunity for the youth economy to encourage and support young St. Lucian businesses to enter this emerging industry, acquire the necessary skills, and build businesses around the renewable energy transition. We should also encourage St. Lucian businesses to participate throughout the renewable energy value chain. That is how the energy transition becomes not simply an environmental necessity, but an economic opportunity, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, investment does not respond to one measure alone. Investment responds to certainty. It responds to the regulatory environment. It responds to cost. It responds to incentives. And it responds when government demonstrates that its policy, legislation, and fiscal measures are moving consistently in the same direction. That is what is taking place today in this chamber, Mr. Speaker. We have established the strategic direction for the National Energy Policy 2023-2030. We have modernized the legislative framework through the Electricity Act 2026. And through this resolution, we are reducing the fiscal costs associated with acquiring and installing PV technology, policy, legislation, incentives, investment. That is how an energy transition moves from aspiration to implementation. I would also encourage our financial institutions to recognize the opportunities created by this policy environment. If government is reducing the fiscal costs associated with renewable energy investment, our banks and credit unions should examine how they can develop accessible and innovative green financing products which allow more St. Lucians to take advantage of these opportunities. Because reducing VAT helps, but access to financing remains critical. The removal of VAT can reduce the cost of the investment. Appropriate financing can make that investment possible in the first place. The transition will move faster when energy policy, legislation, regulation, fiscal incentives, and finances all move in the same direction. Mr. Speaker, our energy transition must also be resilient. St. Lucia remains highly vulnerable to hurricanes, extreme weather events, and other climate-related shocks. The Electricity Act recognizes that reality through provisions for integrated resource and resilience planning, requiring long-term consideration of electricity demand, generation requirements, grid development, resilience, and system reliability. That is important, Mr. Speaker, because the objective is not simply to install more renewable energy capacity. We must build an electricity system capable of integrating that capacity safely and reliably. We must protect the integrity of the grid. We must ensure appropriate technical standards, and we must plan for the electricity needs of the next generation rather than simply responding to the demands of the next year. The transition must therefore be orderly, technically sound, and consistent with the reliability of the national electricity system. The resolution before us complements that approach by facilitating investment in equipment required for distributed PV generation. As I prepare to take my brief intervention to a logical conclusion, Mr. Speaker, again, as Minister for...
Member, are you misleading the House?
Well, since my brief intervention is not recognized by the chair, then I will continue with my long presentation, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, continuing with my long intervention, as Minister for External Affairs, I must also place this measure within its wider international context. St. Lucia is a small island developing state. Our contribution to global greenhouse gas emissions is extremely small, yet we remain disproportionately exposed to the consequences of climate change. We see those consequences in extreme weather, threats to coastal infrastructure and ecosystems, pressures on water resources, and the increasing financial burden of building resilient infrastructure. In international fora, Mr. Speaker, St. Lucia and other small island developing states have consistently argued that climate ambition must be matched by climate action and appropriate climate financing. But our international advocacy is strengthened when we can demonstrate action at home. We can point to our national energy policy. We can point to our modernized electricity legislation. We can point to our renewable energy objective. And we can point to fiscal measures such as the resolution before us today. We can demonstrate that St. Lucia is putting in place the policies, legislation, and incentives required for the transition. And that strengthens our case when we call upon the international community to provide greater access to concessional financing, climate finance, investment, and technology to accelerate that transition. Mr. Speaker, there is another way to understand what we are seeking to accomplish. It is about greater energy sovereignty and greater control over our energy destiny. For generations, St. Lucia's economy has depended on energy resources extracted thousands of miles away, priced in international markets over which we have no control, and transported to our shores at considerable cost. Mr. Speaker, when we import from overseas, the exporters determine the price. When we export our own goods to them, they still determine the price, Mr. Speaker. Yet every morning, one of the most abundant energy resources available to humanity rises over St. Lucia. The sun does not send an invoice. Why is Lucia will send a bill to you every month? The sun, for providing that energy, never sent an invoice to anybody. The challenge has always been developing the technology, financing infrastructure, and regulatory framework necessary to convert that indigenous resource into reliable and affordable electricity. We are progressively putting those pieces in place. Solar energy alone will not solve every energy challenge facing St. Lucia. Our transition will require an appropriate mix of renewable technologies, storage, grid investment, modern regulation, energy efficiency, resilience measures, and careful system planning. But distributed PV generation has an important role to play, and this resolution will help expand that role. So, Mr. Speaker, the 5-year duration of this concession is also significant. This is not a temporary gesture. The period extending from August 2026 to August 2041 provides a meaningful investment horizon for households, businesses, suppliers, installers, and financial institutions. It provides greater certainty to the market. It allows businesses involved in the renewable energy sector to plan. It allows consumers to consider investments over a reasonable period. And it sends a clear signal that government support for renewable energy deployment forms part of a sustained policy direction. We should also recognize that the benefits of this measure will ultimately depend upon our uptake. The concession must translate into investment. Investment must translate into installed capacity. And installed capacity must contribute to the wider objective of energy security, economic resilience, and renewable energy penetration. This is how we should measure success. Mr. Speaker, it is about seeking to move from vulnerability towards greater resilience. The resolution before us is therefore not merely about removing VAT from solar panels, batteries and inverters, cables, control equipment, and installation devices. It is about removing a financial barrier to the participation in St. Lucia's energy transmission. So, Mr. Speaker, I can go on and on and on this beautiful resolution. I can go on for 40 days and 40 nights, Mr. Speaker. But since I promised to be brief, I will take it to a conclusion at this juncture. Mr. Speaker, we have changed the law to enable the transition. Today, we are reducing the cost of participating in it. This is the significance of this resolution before us. And for those reasons, Mr. Speaker, I have no hesitation in supporting this resolution and commending it to this honorable House. Muchas gracias.
The member for Dennery North.
Mr. Speaker, I will stick to the definition of brief that I was taught in primary school many, many years ago. Following on the heels of the member for Labrie, Mr. Speaker, there isn't much left to be said that has not been said. I think his was a very thorough and comprehensive presentation that dealt with all the various aspects of the motion presented by the Prime Minister. I must also commend, Mr. Speaker, the member for Babono for a very insightful presentation, and likewise the member for Choiseul Saltibus, who has proven in a very short time in this parliament that not only is he an authority on things energy, but he brings a passion and enthusiasm that, Mr. Speaker, is a lot more palatable and is a much better reflection of the people of Choiseul compared to what we were accustomed to in this honorable House. Mr. Speaker, I rise to support the value-added tax amendment of schedule as presented by the Honorable Prime Minister. But before I delve, Mr. Speaker, into the substantive matters of the motion, I would crave your indulgence and that of my colleagues to express condolences to the families of Norman, whom you recognize this morning, and Mr. Everestus Jamari. I also want to express condolences to the families of Elisha James of my constituency, Gadet to be precise, who passed away this morning. And I want to, Mr. Speaker, say to his wife, Carol, and relatives to please hold strong. We are standing in solidarity with you during this period of bereavement. I lost a constituent sometime last week, Lawrence Emmanuel, who was better known to most as Yacht, Mr. Speaker, a very humble man, who did not just exist in the community of Grand Riviere, but over time he had proven to be a very loyal supporter of Sean Edward and the St. Lucia Labour Party. But unfortunately he passed, and so I want to profit the opportunity in this honorable House to express condolences to his family. Mr. Speaker, the value-added amendment of schedule proposed here today is very necessary, and it is a timely intervention which sits well with our renewable energy first as a government. Mr. Speaker, photovoltaic or PV as we know it, refers to the direct conversion of light into electricity. As we speak now, our electricity is generated from fossil fuels. We do not have oil, and so we have to import. And it is costing the government of St. Lucia and other countries of the Caribbean an exorbitant amount to import fuel for the generation of electricity. When I presented the electricity bill in this honorable house a few weeks ago, Mr. Speaker, I said at the time, and I'm going to repeat here today, that in the year 2024, it cost the government of St. Lucia, or St. Lucia as a state, $632 million just for the importation of fuel into our country, the majority of which would be for the generation of electricity. Mr. Speaker, we are here today not by accident, but instead to give expression to a policy position that we had established on the campaign trail when we engaged the people of St. Lucia ahead of the general elections of December 1st, 2025. In our manifesto, we said the following, and I quote, "We will pursue an energy independence policy by installing PV systems on government-owned buildings to reduce reliance and dependence on fossil fuel." And Mr. Speaker, we made the pronouncement, but today we are coming here to take concrete steps to ensure that that particular goal, that particular objective is being realized. We are creating the enabling environment whereby businesses and private individuals can import the equipment that they need to establish PV systems at homes and in the business. The Prime Minister, during his presentation, said, Mr. Speaker, or he reminded the House, that the electricity bill that we presented is work in progress. Ever since we passed the electricity bill, we've received feedback, Mr. Speaker, commending us for taking the bold step of putting it on the books. But there's also been some pushback from individuals who believe that the bill or the legislation needs refining. Mr. Speaker, we have no aversion to sitting with stakeholders for further discussion to ensure that the legislation is as robust as possible, helping us realize our development goals, particularly in the area of energy efficiency and energy independence. Mr. Speaker, in our manifesto, we said, and I quote again, "We will offer incentives for private, industrial, and commercial users to generate and store renewable electricity." Mr. Speaker, there is too much of a reliance on fossil fuel for electricity generation. And we live in a part of the world where sunlight is available to us for hours that other regions of the world wish that they had to tap into. But yet, Mr. Speaker, we've been a bit pedestrian in harnessing the natural environment at our disposal to give us the kind of energy security and energy independence that we badly need. So this particular intervention in the Parliament this morning is timely. It is necessary, Mr. Speaker, and it receives the support of the member for Denry North, who has responsibility for energy in the portfolio configurations of the government. Mr. Speaker, moi voulais prendre l'occasion bon matin pour dire que nous ici en Parlement, que le Premier ministre là a dit Parlement, that l'année bagaille il voulait faire les venir pour énergie, pour électrique, pour courant, that moun ka joindre en caillou. Pour le moment, Mr. Speaker, presque tout caille en cette ici et puis business, ka joindre courant hot Lucia. Et puis Lucia ni pour acheter l'huile, ça nous ka créer l'huile, fuel. Et que ni pour mettre ça en generator. Et generator qui produit courant qui arrive en caille nous en business nous even ici en Parlement. Mais nous ka ouais en la terre qu'au pays plus développé par cette ici. Yo pas ka dépend en l'air l'huile et ben fuel pour generate et ben pour produire courant. Mais yo ka servir vent, ça nous ka créer wind energy. Yo ka servir la mer, wave action. Et puis yon ces form of energy qui plus populaire, c'est ça nous ka créer solar energy que ça servi clarté ou ka joindre hot soleil là et pour ça point ça et puis faire electricity et puis courant hot ça. Les soleil là nous ni Mr. Speaker, nous pas ni pour payer pour ça. Mais nous pour mettre système et puis technologie en place qui en cause nous servir Clétia nous ka joindre hot soleil là et puis produire électricité et nous pas dépend pour nous ka acheter l'huile l'autre pays qui a coûté nous quantité l'argent qu'on nous ka ouais en temps qui passé. So ça nous ka fait ici en parlement bon matin. C'est pour produire un list of bagaille moun kay besoin pour mettre en caillou et puis mettre en business yo ko yo ça servi Clétia yo ka joindre hot soleil là pour produire courant et puis électricité by caillou et puis by qui a établi en cette liste. Mr. Speaker, by so doing, we are reducing the cost of electricity to the average consumer. This is work in progress. We are not exactly where we want to be. But as I indicated, the enactment of the legislation coming to Parliament to ensure that there's no VAT on the critical components of PV systems represent a very bold and progressive step in the right direction as we try to attain energy independence and energy security. So, Mr. Speaker, I support the motion, and it is my firm belief that the benefits to be derived will redound to the people of my constituency, Denry North, and by extension, the people of St. Lucia, whether in their private homes or in their business enterprises. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Minister for Finance.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to move for first reading a bill sorted entitled.
You wanted to rebut to the.
Oh, rebut. No, Mr. Speaker, I want to I want to thank the honourable members, Mr. Speaker, for their contribution. Mr. Speaker, and as was clearly outlined by all the members who spoke, Mr. Speaker, is that this is legislation for the future. This legislation, the Minister for Commerce made the point that it will help small businesses. The Minister for Public Utilities will help households. The Minister for External Affairs, Mr. Speaker, made the point, the general impact, and the Minister for Infrastructure spoke to the overall benefits, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, I want to say that this is work in progress. This is legislation that we're going to be improving all the time, looking to convert our natural capabilities, sun and wind, Mr. Speaker. And something we are also working on, Mr. Speaker, but I will take some time. We know some islands in the region are making good progress. It's geothermal. We are also working on our geothermal capabilities as we speak, Mr. Speaker, our geothermal capabilities. So we are really looking to energy renewal, Mr. Speaker, because no one is looking for us. No one cares about us, Mr. Speaker. Countries have their own policies, whether it be policies on immigration or policies, whatever, Mr. Speaker, of visas. Countries have their own policies. So we have to look to what we can do internally, Mr. Speaker, how we can help ourselves. And that is why it's important that we do not shoot ourselves in the foot at any time, regardless of our political affiliation, Mr. Speaker. Further, Mr. Speaker, I want to put in a plug for water harvesting. Rainwater harvesting in particular, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I think my colleague, my friend here, made a point. He said we should have a full portfolio. Minister for rainwater harvesting. Mr. Speaker, you know, Mr. Speaker, I shouldn't get up on that, Mr. Speaker. Because, Mr. Speaker, some rain fell last night. Mr. Speaker, do you know, and I have a friend in the Senate, Ignatius Jean, he calculates how much water that can be stored with, of course, how many millimeters of rain that falls. Mr. Speaker, do you know, if we saved, if we harvested the water, the rain that fell last night, you know, we could have water for everybody for at least 7 days, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, at my home I have 11 tanks, 13 tanks. Mr. Speaker, and I want to get and counting, Mr. Speaker, because I am never without water, Mr. Speaker, never. And it's very telling. You drive around St. Lucia, and anytime I drive, I comment to the people with me, look at that, Mr. Speaker. There are water tanks, big stands, well put together, Mr. Speaker, and a Wasco pipe up there, going to join it. Now Wasco have no water, so the tank is empty. And right above the tank, there is a guttering, and the water goes straight into the ground. Because, I mean, I try my best, and some cynics and critics try to make fun of that, Mr. Speaker. But, Mr. Speaker, it's just that, you know, none so blind as those who cannot see. Because the Wasco pipe, and right above water, endless water, and they direct it from the tank, instead of putting the tank, they throw it in the ground. And they have Wasco going up, and they complain, Pierre, give us water. So, Mr. Speaker, in all our renewable energy and our alternative energy, I want to urge the people of St. Lucia to take rainwater harvesting seriously. I want to almost beg them, think about it. Do not close your mind to that because some frustrated politician tell you it will make the government look good. Don't do it, Mr. Speaker. Think about it. Think about it, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, I thank members for the support, and I also want to say to them that this is a work in progress. It's a work in progress. We are going to be refining our policies towards renewable energy. As I said, we'll be going into geothermal energy to help to reduce. Mr. Speaker, think about the savings that can happen if we reduce our fossil fuel bill. Just think about the savings. Just imagine, Mr. Speaker. There are people who have changed their electricity, reduced the electricity by hundreds of dollars, Mr. Speaker, just by making the energy transition. So, Mr. Speaker, I thank members and I ask that this motion be passed. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable members, the question is that Parliament, by affirmative resolution, approves the draft value-added tax amendment of Schedule 1, Number 2 order, which amends Schedule 1 of the Act to include as zero-rated goods for a period of 5 years, commencing from the 2nd day of August 2026 and terminating on the 1st day of August 2031. A supply of goods under the following custom tariff headings: solar panel mounts, data loggers, complete systems, charge controllers and inverters, deep cycle batteries, communication cabling, Ethernet switches, protective devices, communication devices, cable isolator switches, isolators, MC4 connectors, battery clamps, junction boxes, combiner and combiner boxes, solar panels, direct current DC, alternative current AC cables, control devices, other DC AC components, control components, and B, a supply of the installation service for photovoltaic systems. And now put the question, as many as of that opinion say aye. As many as of a contrary opinion say no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it. Bills, Minister for National Security.
And for first reading, a bill shortly entitled Criminal Code Amendment.
Criminal Code Amendment.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to move that this bill be presented for second reading at the next or subsequent sitting of this Honorable House.
Minister for Finance.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to present for first reading a bill shortly entitled Income Tax Amendment Number 3.
Income Tax Amendment Number 3.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to move the suspension of Standing Order number 48-2 to allow the bill to go through its remaining stages at this sitting.
Honorable members, the question is that Standing Order 48-2 be suspended to allow the Minister for Finance to push through the bill for its entire stage, all of its stages at this sitting. And now put the question, as many as of that opinion say aye.
Aye.
As many of the contrary opinion say no. Saying the ayes have it, the ayes have it. Leave granted. Please proceed, Minister for Finance.
Mr. Speaker, the bill for consideration is an income tax amendment number 3 bill. The purpose of the bill is to amend the Income Tax Act, Cap 15.02. Clause 1 of the bill makes provision for the short title of the bill, and Clause 2 of the bill provides for interpretation. Clause 3 of the bill amends Section 38 of the Act, deductions allowable specific, to extend the deduction for income years 2026 to 2031, as it relates to the entire expenditure with respect to the purchase and installation of a solar photovoltaic system or related components. In Clause 4 of the bill, Section 44 of the Act, concessional deductions general, is amendment to exclude from the overall cap of $40,000 the expenses relating to the purchase and installation of solar systems or related components for the income year 2026 to 2031. Section 59C of the Act, deductions for the purchase and installation of photovoltaic systems, is amended under Clause 5 of the bill to extend the deductions to the income years 2026 to 2031. Mr. Speaker, this is another amendment to the Income Tax Act, which this government is continuing amending Income Tax Act, Mr. Speaker, to assist with the to increase the disposable income of taxpayers, Mr. Speaker. In this amendment, Mr. Speaker, it says that up to, since we've zero rated solar panels and these other renewable energy components used for renewable energy, Mr. Speaker, it says that up to $25,000 worth of incentives or worth of allowances can be had by anybody who installs that system, installs a solar system. And this does not include the $40,000 general allowances that that are allowable now under the Income Tax Act, Mr. Speaker. So it means that we've extended that, the installation, for a further 5 years, from 2nd August 2026 to 1st August 2031, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, for the calendar years 2026-2031, expenditures related to the purchase and installation of these systems be made a deductible expense for the purpose of income tax to a limit of $25,000 annually. And this deduction would be in addition to the existing aggregate deductions cap of $40,000 for personal income tax, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, put it simply, if you install, supposing your allowances are $30,000 and you install a solar system and it costs you $20,000, for these years your allowance will be $55,000. Increases your allowances, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, this is significant in that apart from these savings, you will make savings on the payment of your electricity. So whereas there's an additional fixed cost, the initial cost is higher, Mr. Speaker, in that to set up a system, there's a high initial cost. But you can pay back on that cost by the savings on your electricity and the savings you'll make on your income tax, because you allowed the extra cost of the installation of that system in addition to the allowances that you already have, Mr. Speaker. So it's a win-win situation, Mr. Speaker, for all. It's a win-win situation. And Mr. Speaker, further, that also as to the fact that medical expenses, if you have medical expenses and the medical expenses exceed, you can get a full allowance once you can prove that these medical expenses are for yourself, of course, and you needed them to improve the quality of your health, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, again, work in progress, incremental additions to the income tax, incremental relief to the income tax. I know many people are going to be very happy, Mr. Speaker. I know one lady, particularly in my office, is very happy because she claims not to be able to pay too many taxes, Mr. Speaker, and she is very worried that other taxes will come. There will be other taxes, Mr. Speaker. But, Mr. Speaker, this Minister of Finance believes in equality. So any tax changes are going to be equitable, and it will benefit everyone, Mr. Speaker, as illustrated by this amendment. So, Mr. Speaker, very simple amendment, simple but profound, to extend it from 2025 to 2023 to 2025. You have to, in changing section 59C, Mr. Speaker, the amendment will read as follows. In subsection 1, by inserting immediately after the words income years 2023 to 2025, the words and income year 2026 to 2031. That's the amendment to section 59C, and the amendment to section, amending section 59C, inserting immediately after subsection 4 the following new subsection 4E, where reduction is allowable under subsection the solar, photovoltaic, or related components are sold within 5 years of the purchase of or installation. The reduction is no longer allowed, and the deducted income tax must be paid on the prorated basis as appears to the comptroller to be reasonable. What that says, Mr. Speaker, in short, you must keep your system for 5 years. That's all it says in short. You must keep it for 5 years, Mr. Speaker. And, Mr. Speaker, the amendment of section 4, the allowances and deductions excluded from the overall cap of $40,000. In the case of income years 2023-2025, the personal allowance, the deduction of medical expenses, and in the case of income years 2023-2025 and 2026-2031, the expenses related to the purchase of these systems. The amendment to section 38, Mr. Speaker, is what we did. You insert a new section where reduction is allowable on a subsection if the solar photovoltaic system or related components are sold in 5 years, which is what I said in section 59C, Mr. Speaker. So these are the amendments, simple but profound. I thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I suggest that the bill go through the other stages, Mr. Speaker. All members are not...
Well, we just, Prime Minister, there appears to be an internet issue, so we are not at the moment live, so we're just trying to decide whether we continue or take a break.
You can continue, Mr. Speaker.
Okay, I think I'm seeing a sign that we should continue. But
Mr. Speaker,
I have to read the bill a second time, Finance Minister. So let me just put the question to the House first, since there's nobody. Honorable members, the question is that the Income Tax Amendment number 3 bill be read a second time. I now put the question. As many as with opinion, say aye. As many as have a contrary opinion say no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it.
An act to amend the Income Tax Act Cap 15.02 and for related matters.
Clause 2.
Interpretation.
Clause 2 stands part of the act. Part of the bill, sorry. Clause 3.
Amendment of Section 38.
Clause 3 stands part of the bill. Clause 4.
Amendment of Section 44.
Clause 4 stands part of the bill. Clause 5.
Amendment of Section 59C.
Clause 5 stands part of the bill. Clause 1.
Short title.
Clause 1 stands part of the bill. Honourable members, the question is that the committee rises and the bill be reported. I now put the question. As many as of that opinion say aye. As many as of a contrary opinion say no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it. Honourable members, I beg to report that the Income Tax Amendment Number 3 bill went through committee stage without amendments. Minister for Finance.
Mr. Speaker, I move that the report of the committee be adopted and the bill be read a third time and passed.
Honourable members, the question is that the report of the committee be adopted and that the Income Tax Amendment Number 3 bill be read a third time and passed. I now put the question. As many as of that opinion say aye. Aye. As many as of a contrary opinion say no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it.
Be it enacted by the King's Most Excellent Majesty, by and with the advice and consent of the House of Assembly and Senate of St. Lucia, and by the authority of the same as follows. This act may be cited as the Income Tax Amendment Number 3 Act 2026.
Minister for Home Affairs, Crime Prevention, Conflict Resolution and Persons with Disabilities.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to present for second reading a bill shortly entitled Plea Bargaining. Mr. Speaker, the bill before this Honourable House is the Plea Bargaining Bill, and I want to start by making it abundantly clear that the Plea Bargaining Bill is not about reducing punishment for criminals, Mr. Speaker, but it is about improving the state's ability to secure accountability, to obtain cooperation, to protect victims, and to make the justice system work more effectively. And usually, Mr. Speaker, when we speak of the justice system, you hear the words effectiveness and efficiency being mentioned. And the idea of the plea bargaining bill is to ensure that we can get to a space where we are more effective and more efficient. Mr. Speaker, we must not confuse efficiency with leniency. A justice system that takes 10 years to bring a case to conclusion is not necessarily a strong justice system. Sometimes justice delayed is justice weakened, or how we know, all of us know how the adage goes, justice denied. Justice delayed is justice denied. So, Mr. Speaker, the purpose of this bill is to provide for plea bargaining and post-sentence plea bargaining to enable the DPP, the Director of Public Prosecution, and an accused person or convicted person, whether represented by an attorney at law or unrepresented, to engage in plea discussions and enter plea agreements in relation to the prosecution of a summary offense, an indictable offense, or an offense triable summarily or on indictment. And although plea discussions, one may argue, Mr. Speaker, that plea discussions may occur in practice, and as a former police officer, I can attest to the fact that there were instances where a defendant, when brought before the court, would have pleaded guilty in the first instance. Probably immediately thereafter, the magistrate, in her wisdom, may decide to give them a 1-foot discount, and probably in the time when the Attorney General at the time was a defendant. He used to represent quite a few defendants in this country. When he brought forward the mitigating factors, the magistrate may decide to even go further, Mr. Speaker, and discount the person's sentence even further. However, Mr. Speaker, although we've seen plea bargaining happen in practice in St. Lucia, what we don't have is a statutory framework governing plea bargaining. And what this bill is intended to do is to give us that framework. And the bill addresses the gap by establishing a comprehensive and structured process that is subject to judicial oversight. Very important words, Mr. Speaker, judicial oversight. Mr. Speaker, the bill also authorizes the DPP to enter plea bargaining with an accused person and post-sentence plea bargaining with a convicted person in specified circumstances. And under the bill, plea bargaining may be undertaken where an accused person accepts responsibility for an offense, agrees to cooperate with the prosecution, or agrees to provide evidence in criminal proceedings. Mr. Speaker, I want to just repeat that part, and I'm going to expound on it a little bit. The bill authorizes the DPP to enter plea bargaining with an accused person and post-sentence plea bargaining with a convicted person in specified circumstances. Under the bill, plea bargaining may be undertaken where an accused person accepts responsibility for an offense, agrees to cooperate with the prosecution, or agrees to provide evidence in criminal proceedings. So, Speaker, what happens here essentially is, in jurisdictions like ours, where we have suffered from gang violence, we have suffered from firearm-related offenses, usually the police officer will tell you, Mr. Speaker, even when they do their investigation, that the person who they usually apprehend for the offense may not be the mastermind behind that particular offense. Sometimes the man walking the streets with the gun in his hand, he just rent the firearm, or his partner just allow him to hold that, or the bossman has made it available to him. Mr. Speaker, what the plea bargaining bill does, it allows for an individual, if caught by the police and decides to go into a bargain, I don't want to use the words rat out, but they can give information. I don't want to call them soothsayer or informer either, Mr. Speaker, but it allows for them to be able to give information. And if the information can be deemed truthful and it can lead to further breakthroughs for the police, Mr. Speaker, that person may be in a position to get a reduced sentence. The bill allows for that person to be in a position to get a reduced sentence. What it does for us now, Mr. Speaker, it now creates opportunity for the police who put oftentimes most of their resources into investigation, now puts them in a position where this bill gives them another tool to be able to utilize, to be able to break down criminal gangs. We have quite a bit of organized crime. So now they have a tool, Mr. Speaker, that allows them to be able to trade information, concrete information that may lead to further breakthroughs for a reduction in sentence. And as much as I may speak about reduction in sentence, Mr. Speaker, I want to say here that it does not mean automatically that because you give the police information, that if you're going to be sentenced for 10 years, that you get a sentence for 2 years. That's not how it works. The court and the judge will have the last say in what happens. Mr. Speaker, the bill also permits post-sentence plea bargaining where a convicted person provides or undertakes to provide substantial assistance in the prevention, the detection or investigation of criminal activity or in criminal proceedings. So, more than just someone who has been arrested and charged, Mr. Speaker, the bill also makes provision for someone who has been convicted. So you've gone to court, you've already been convicted, you're at the Bodley Correctional Facility. As Nintas put it, some people find Jesus in jail. So if there's a small blue Bible, you figure you find Jesus and you want to give some information. Even after you're convicted, that the bill makes provision where you can go into a plea bargain and you may get a reduction in sentence based on the quality of information that you provide the police or the investigator with. The bill is intended to facilitate the efficient administration of justice while maintaining appropriate safeguards. It recognizes that cooperation from offenders may assist law enforcement authorities in investigating and prosecuting serious criminal activity, and that in appropriate circumstances, such cooperation may justify sentencing consideration. So again, Mr. Speaker, as I would have mentioned earlier, the bill recognizes that cooperation from offenders, persons who have been arrested, persons who have been charged, persons who have been convicted, they sometimes, Mr. Speaker, they are the keys to unlock even greater doors in terms of investigation. They have the keys to unlock bigger doors. Mr. Speaker, investigators will tell you that there is no information as good as that of what we call sometimes informants. They sometimes partake in criminal activities. They can lead you and they can allow you to have the greatest breakthroughs in your fight against crime. So the bill understands that and allows for there to be cooperation from offenders, because we know that this cooperation can lead to either greater breakthroughs, Mr. Speaker, and it can justify a reduction in sentences. Mr. Speaker, the bill also creates a framework for which cooperation may be taken in account by the court while preserving judicial independence and public confidence in the criminal justice system. A central feature of the bill is judicial oversight. A plea agreement does not automatically take effect upon being reached between the DPP and accused person. I think that's very important, Mr. Speaker, that we understand that, and I even break that down a little further. It is not a situation whereby someone just decides, okay, I'm just going to go into a plea. There are processes that before you can go into a plea bargain, there are certain processes and certain parameters that one must meet. A plea agreement does not automatically take effect upon being reached between the DPP and accused person. Every plea agreement must be presented before the court at a plea agreement hearing. So it is not a situation where there's going to be a arrangement between the DPP and the accused. That is not what the bill is intended to do. Even if there is an agreement, the agreement must be brought before the court. I think the bill allows for it to be heard in open court. So there will be, after the agreement happens, the facts will be presented before court, and a judge or magistrate will have a final say in what happens. And it's not automatic that the agreement that you had with the Director of Public Prosecution or the prosecutor is going to be accepted by the court when you go there. Every plea agreement must be presented before the court at a plea agreement hearing, and the court must be satisfied that the accused person understands the plea agreement and its consequences. Very important as well, Mr. Speaker. The court must satisfy itself that it was not imposed on the accused, that the accused didn't take advantage of the accused. And I think in section 6, they make specific mention of the protections and the safeguards for even the accused, Mr. Speaker. I think it mentions in section 6 that where an accused person enters plea bargaining without representation, the court shall, before approving plea bargaining, satisfy itself that the accused person understands his or her rights under subsection 1, is fit to enter plea bargaining, and understands the natures and consequences of plea bargaining. So it's not a situation where it's going to be imposed on you. The court must satisfy itself that the person who has entered into that bargain understands their rights, they understand the consequences of the decision, they understand that when I say, okay, I want to enter into a plea bargain, these are the consequences. The court must satisfy itself of these things, Mr. Speaker. The court must be satisfied, as I mentioned, that the accused person understands the plea agreement and its consequences. The plea agreement was entered into voluntarily, and that the proposed plea adequately reflects the gravity of the provable conduct. Importantly, the bill expressly provides that a plea agreement is not binding on the court. The court retains the authority, as I would have said earlier. Even if the DPP and the accused or the convicted person goes into a plea arrangement or some bargaining arrangement, Mr. Speaker, the court still has the final say. The court retains the authority to accept or to reject the plea and to determine the appropriate sentence in accordance with law. Mr. Speaker, the bill also contains important safeguards for accused persons. The court is required to inform an accused person of their legal rights, including the right to legal representation and the availability of legal aid. Additional protections are provided for accused persons who elect to proceed without legal representation. These provisions are intended to ensure that participation in plea bargaining is informed and voluntary. Mr. Speaker, I've mentioned a lot about the accused, a lot about the convicted, a lot about the role of the prosecution and the office of the DPP. And one may ask, with all of this, where does the victim come in all of that? I am pleased, Mr. Speaker, to announce that I think in section 10(3) and section 16, the bill contains important safeguards for victims. Victims are afforded an opportunity to make representation regarding a proposed plea agreement and to provide victim impact statements. And a victim impact statement must be provided to the Department of Probation and Parole Services by. And it does not say must be provided. It does not give you the option of whether or not, Mr. Speaker. So there is safeguard for victims. Under section 13 says where the Director of Public Prosecution shall not reach a plea agreement unless he or she has an opportunity to make representation regarding the contents of the plea agreement. So it says the Director of Public Prosecution shall not reach a plea agreement unless he or she has informed and given, in the case of a victim who is a child, a parent or guardian of the victim, in the case of a victim who is an adult, the victim, an opportunity to make representation regarding the contents of the plea agreement. So it is not something that's happening behind closed doors and that the victim will not be aware. The victim will be given an opportunity to make representation regarding the contents of the plea arrangement. I think that's very important, Mr. Speaker, that the victim is being considered in all of that. And in section 16, Mr. Speaker, another safeguard for the victim makes mention that the Director of Public Prosecution who reaches a plea agreement shall inform, in the case of the victim who is a child, a parent, guardian of the victim, in the case of the victim who is an adult, the victim, of the substance and reason for the plea agreement unless compelling reasons, including likelihood of serious harm to the accused person or another person, requires otherwise. So the DPP is mandated to keep the victim, or the office of the DPP, Director of Public Prosecution, is mandated to ensure that the victim is kept in the know and in the loop about what is happening. So it is not a situation where we go behind closed doors and things happen and the victim just gets to know on the television or some other place through social media that this person has had a reduction in sentence because they chose the option of a plea bargain. Mr. Speaker, the bill further authorizes the court to impose a lesser sentence where an accused person provides substantial assistance for the prosecution and law enforcement authorities. In determining whether a reduced sentence is appropriate, the court must consider a number of factors, including the significance and usefulness of the assistance, the truthfulness of the information provided by the extent of the cooperation, and any risk faced by the accused person as a result of that cooperation. The decision whether to impose a lesser sentence remains entirely with the discretion of the court. Another significant feature of the bill, Mr. Speaker, is the establishment of a framework for post-sentence plea bargaining. the bill recognizes meaningful cooperation may arise after a sentence, and I would have mentioned that sometimes when someone has been convicted while spending time at Bodley, they find Jesus and they decide, okay, this is the time that I want to speak, and they come out and they want to confess certain things that can lead, and that information can lead to serious breakthroughs for law enforcement. And if they decide at that time, the bill actually makes provision for them post-sentence or whilst after conviction, the bill makes provision for them to be able to enter into a plea bargain. Mr. Speaker, in this regard, the bill creates, very important, the bill creates a limited exception to the doctrine of functus officio. And ordinarily, Mr. Speaker, you know, one knows that when a magistrate or judge or any kind of arbitrator decides or gives their verdict on a matter, that matter is considered dealt with and we don't return to it. However, this bill allows for a little exemption in that regard, an exception in that regard. So even if someone has been convicted, even if they've been sentenced, it allows for them to be able to go into a plea bargain if they have good information that can be utilized. So it allows for, once the court has imposed a sentence, the court has no authority to revisit the sentence, but the bill permits the court in specified circumstances and upon application by the DPP to review a sentence, notwithstanding the doctrine of functus officio. This mechanism is intended to provide sentencing consideration for substantial assistance rendered after sentence and to encourage cooperation that may assist in the prevention, detection, and prosecution of serious criminal activity. Mr. Speaker, I think it is fair to say that every one of us here knows someone who has complained about the judicial system, about the length of time it takes to get a matter to go through the system. Sometimes the victims, unfortunately, have time die before they can even get a verdict, which I think is unfair. And through no fault of ours here, Mr. Speaker, no fault of ours, of those of us sitting around the table. And I think only this morning I would have seen a post, a Facebook post from the Prime Minister of Antigua, Gaston Brown, where he mentioned about firearms, that they've gone to the court, they've increased penalties for firearms. However, those charged with the responsibility to administer sometimes, and they could not put as much as they would have put a ceiling, 15 years imprisonment. They were told that they cannot say 10 years, below 10 years, but not above 15 years. So the below, the threshold, they have to leave the below open, which allows for the independent body, the judiciary, to come in. And still, notwithstanding that, you may come in, Mr. Speaker, and I always have a little bit of difficulty with that, Mr. Speaker, because I believe when parliamentarians come to this honorable house, and when the Prime Minister took a decision to come here and increase the penalties for firearm offenses and firearm-related offenses, is because he's expressing the sentiments of the general public. So there's an outcry in the public. The public is asking for stiffer penalties. And if we come here and we say we're going to pass laws, but however, AG can probably guide me here. I'm not a legal mind, but from my understanding is, as much as we can put a ceiling and say that we can put a maximum fine of $100,000, we can put a maximum fine of 25 years. You cannot say that you can put no less than 24 years. So persons who were going, when sentences was happening and persons were getting 3 years, or what we deem a slap on the wrist, maybe 3 months in prison, and we come here with the idea or with the hope that what we say here is going to be taken, is going to be considered, and we're going to see it reflected in the judiciary, Mr. Speaker. As much as they're independent, we come in here to pass laws, and we pass laws for a reason. This morning, Mr. Gaston Brown made a Facebook post to say that they've increased, they've made firearm offenses, they've increased penalties for firearm offenses. However, that has not seemed to work, because the judiciary still sentence the same way that they sentenced before they increased the penalties. So it's not really meeting the mandate. So them coming to pass laws, Mr. Speaker, and I don't say that to call on the judiciary or to say anything to them, because I respect their position
and I understand the position of independence, but I also think that what we do here is a direct reflection of the sentiments of the people of Micoud North, of Dennery North, of Dennery South, of Grosile, of Labrie. We represent the interests of the people, and we come and we make representation on their behalf with the hope Soufrière is a country by itself. So, Mr. Speaker, the bill establishes the right of appeal in relation. So if you go through the entire process and you're not happy, the bill does make provision for the rights of appeal in relation to plea agreements, convictions, sentences, post-sentence plea agreements, and decisions made on sentence review. In addition, the bill contains provisions relating to the sealing of records, confidentiality obligations, and the inadmissibility of plea bargaining and post-sentence plea bargaining as evidence in criminal or civil court proceedings. So in essence, Mr. Speaker, what the bill does, it says even if you decide to enter a plea into a plea bargain, Mr. Speaker, and you and the DPP, when there's a prescribed form, all the information was recorded on the form, and before the matter was brought in open court, you decide that you no longer want to be part of that plea bargain. That information that was recorded is not, the DPP is not able to use it against you in the future. So if the trial has to continue, the DPP is not able to use that information and to say that, okay, during the plea bargaining you would have said X, Y, and Z, more or less admitting to guilt. And now to say that you're guilty, the DPP would not be in a position to use it. That would be deemed inadmissible in a court of law. So the bill and these provisions are intended to preserve the integrity of the plea bargaining process and encourage frank and meaningful plea discussions. In summary, the bill establishes a modern statutory framework for plea bargaining and post-sentence plea bargaining in St. Lucia. Mr. Speaker, before I take my seat, Mr. Speaker, I think I can say again that we are not simply asking criminals to plead guilty in exchange for less time, but what we are saying essentially is that we are creating a legal mechanism through which the state can obtain information. Very important is the obtaining of information, evidence, and testimony that can help prosecute other offenders. It can really help us in our efforts to deal with organized crime, drug trafficking. It can really help us in dealing with these type of crimes, Mr. Speaker. And again, ensure that the victims are not forgotten. I would have made mention of section, I think, 10, 13, and 16 that makes provisions for the victim, gives consideration to the victims and the rights of the victims. And an offender who breaks the agreement can face consequences. Also makes provision to ensure that if an offender who breaks the provision, so notwithstanding that you may go into some plea bargaining, if when the matter goes to open court, one decides that here's what, I no longer, or they breach what they would have said, what would happen now is that the bill makes provision so that the trial can continue. So it doesn't mean that because you went into a plea bargain that the trial immediately discontinues. No. If you go to open court and you breach what you said, then the trial is allowed, there is provision to allow the trial to continue, and you will be able to face the full brunt of the law. Mr. Speaker, and the bill gives the court discretion to impose a lesser sentence based on the offender's assistance and requires the court to consider the factors including the significance. Very important, Mr. Speaker. And don't think because they say plea bargaining that you will come there and just give the court any pash or give the investigator any pash information and think, oh, no, that's not how it's going to work at all, Mr. Speaker. The information is going to be looked at. They look at the validity of the information, the truthfulness of the information, the significance of it, and the completeness and reliability of that information, and timeliness of the assistance. And timeliness because, you know, Mr. Speaker, sometimes prisoners or accused individuals or convicted individuals, Mr. Speaker, always think that they can find a trick or some way around the system. So someone may decide, maybe after they've been convicted, here's what, I just remember, in 2015, me and my partner did something and they figured they want to give you that information. Timeliness is also a factor that's going to be considered. You can't come here and give us all outdated information that cannot lead to anything and think that you're just going to get a reduction in your sentence. That's not how it's going to work at all. Correct? So, and the question before us is not whether criminals should be punished. I think we all agree that they should be punished. The question is whether the state should have every lawful and effective tool available to ensure that criminals are held accountable and that we get to the wider criminal enterprise behind the individuals who have been caught. And again, Mr. Speaker, I say from my own experience, I can tell you as a policeman, oftentimes the man you find with the firearm is just a hitman, he's just doing a job, but the real masterminds, some of them, they live in, I don't want to say the northern oligarchy, but they live in big houses, they have good jobs, and sometimes, Mr. Speaker, the only way that we can truly break through these networks is by giving an accused or convicted person an avenue whereby they can give information, quality information, reliable information for a reduction in sentence. And the bill provides, again, for those who have already been convicted, so that they too can be given an opportunity. So, Mr. Speaker, in closing, I want to say that this is not something that is just unique to St. Lucia. I think it's timely. In Jamaica, they've been utilizing legislation of this type, and what it has done, it has allowed for matters to be able to be dealt with in an expeditious way, Mr. Speaker, not undermining the judicial system. And as I'm speaking about matters being dealt with in an expeditious way, I think it's also an opportunity, Mr. Speaker, for me to say that the Prime Minister, in his wisdom, when he decided to launch a backlog court, again, another step to helping us deal with some of the situations, the backlog that we've had in the system. And this is one tool that will help us deal with that system. What I can tell you is, from the establishment of the backlog court, the director of Bodley, I spoke to him only yesterday, and you'd have said to me, Minister, you know that the backlog court is working wonders for us at Bodley. Wonders. And prior to the establishment of that court, we had a situation where we had in excess of 358 inmates on remand, and we had less inmates serving their sentences. What the backlog court has done, Mr. Speaker, it has brought us almost on par in terms of the numbers of inmates who are penal and those on remand. So right now we are almost on par, and at the rate we're going, it looks like very soon we'll have more penal and less remand. So those individuals on remand who have been waiting for their trial, their trials are happening. I'm very happy with the rate at which it's happening. I must compliment the staff and the people who work with the backlog court. I want to thank the Prime Minister for his wisdom in establishing such a court. It has really helped us. And me being Minister of Home Affairs, I can tell you the impact of that. When we have inmates who are on remand, it's a lot more difficult because we have to assume innocence. So we have to treat them as if they're innocent. So it becomes very difficult as to what can we do with them in terms of rehabilitation and what we cannot do. And as part of our crime prevention mandate, rehabilitation takes center stage as well, Mr. Speaker. So we can bring in those inmates who have already been convicted, who have already been sentenced. We can bring them into some of the rehabilitation programs. However, those individuals who are on remand, it's a little more difficult in terms of navigating with them, because by you putting them in a rehabilitation program, it's like you're already assuming that they're guilty. So it becomes a little difficult and a little tricky to navigate that. I'm happy with the work of the backlog court. It's actually helping me as a Minister of Home Affairs. It's helping the Bodley Correctional Facility, those individuals involved in rehabilitation. And speaking of Bodley, Mr. Speaker, oftentimes we speak of the Bodley Correctional Facility, people think of just the punitive measures and punishing people. And I can tell you, Mr. Speaker, I visited the Bodley Correctional Facility about a week and a half ago with the Minister of Education, Honorable Danny Butcher, the member for Vieux-Fort South. And Mr. Speaker, it would amaze you to know that the inmates at the facility are the ones, so they are bakers, and they're the ones preparing their own meals, chefs preparing their own meals. The uniforms that you see the inmates wearing, they're the ones, they are tailors, so they're the ones sewing their uniforms themselves. There was a time when the Ministry of Education used to allow a lot of the furniture repairs to be done by the inmates there, and they will tell you that some of the best quality repairs that they get comes from the Bodley Correctional Facility. As we speak, Mr. Speaker, we have a cohort of 40 inmates doing automotive repair engines. So they're working on both regular and hybrid engines, 40 of them now. And the idea is to be able to work with the ministry, as Prime Minister has said, we can be working in silos. So the idea is to work with the Ministry of Education to ensure that these people can be CVQ qualified, and hopefully upon being released from prison, these individuals can now have a skill, have a trade, and not just have a skill and a trade. Whilst they're at the bodily facility, we want to get them in the habit of working, in the habit of being punctual, in the habit, and we have those who are going to get qualified in landscaping as well. And the idea is to get them qualified, get them reintegrated into society so that we can reduce the rate of recidivism in this country. We cannot continue to have a country where we have a small country of 180,000, close to 200,000 people, and we have almost 600 individuals at the Bodley Correctional Facility. That is unacceptable. I think these people can be working and contributing meaningfully to the economic development of the country. So whilst they're there, we're going to work with them to prepare them so that when they go out, and we're going to provide them with, Prime Minister provided the funding even when Trump decided to put the stop work program. He decided to continue the funding. So we're able to get these people we provide them with psychosocial support, career guidance training, life skill training, all sorts, CBT it's called, cognitive behavior therapy, all sorts of things happening there, Mr. Speaker, just to be able to prepare these individuals so that when they leave the Bodley Correctional Facility, because the truth is, again, I'm not one to say that I have the softest of hearts, but I understand that sometimes life can deal you a bad hand, a bad card, and anyone can find themselves, and Prime Minister has something that says there are a lot of people, those individuals at Bodley are those that they've already caught. There are a lot of people, there are more people walking outside that they've not caught, that if they were to be caught, that they would have been at Bodley too. But sometimes we try to behave a little bit hypocritical because nobody knows our sins. And when we look at individuals who've gone to the facility, we treat them as outcasts. But I'll tell you that there's somebody's brother, somebody's sister, somebody's child. And we need to, even as a society, we need to rethink how we deal with individuals when they've been incarcerated. And it's important part, it's a very important part of the reintegration process, how receptive society is to them. So again, Mr. Speaker, not to stray too much because I'm doing the plea bargaining bill. I think it's important that I made mention of these things. I want to encourage members to support the bill. I want to encourage members to give their support to this bill as it serves as an important tool for the judicial system. It serves as an important tool to help in the expeditious dealing with matters. Matters can be dealt with in an expeditious manner. It provides an avenue for accused individuals to be able to cooperate with investigators so that we can break down criminal networks, we can deal with narco trafficking, we can deal with gun and gang violence. We can get information to deal with that. And again, we've seen the success that has a system like that has brought to places like even in the United States. When you watch movies, Mr. Speaker, you see it all the time where when individuals are caught, they bring them into a room and they can decide for their freedom or for a lesser sentence. They decide to go into some sort of deal. Every day we see these things being depicted in movies and whatnot. What we're doing here is bringing it to reality in this country. So again, I want to thank the Prime Minister, as he is the Minister of Justice, and the AG and his team for ensuring that we can bring this bill before the House. And I want to encourage members to support the bill, as this bill will go a long way in helping us with our judicial system. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable members, the question is that the plea bargaining bill be read a second time.
Mr. Speaker. See my light.
Huh?
My light.
Oh, the member for Castries East.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I sat in this chair, Mr. Speaker, and I listened to the member for Mikunov present the bill, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, I must tell you, I felt proud. I felt proud, Mr. Speaker, because I saw the work of this government bearing fruit, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, you know, there's a lot of noise now, a lot of useless noise, Mr. Speaker. A lot of noise about crime, a lot of noise about trying to destroy an organization for poor people that helps poor people. A lot of noise, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, but when you sit in quiet contemplation and you listen to the work of this government, Mr. Speaker, you listen to the work of this government, the work that we are doing, not only in the economy, but in social services, Mr. Speaker, you see that this is work in progress and St. Lucia is in good hands. Mr. Speaker, when we put together the Ministry of Crime Prevention, the cynics as usual, a country full of cynics, not a country full of cynics, a country with some cynics, who usually try to throw cold water on anything the government does. They'll always look at the glass half empty, and they look at the worst, and they predict the worst, and they hope that the worst will come, Mr. Speaker. Crime. Mr. Speaker, there is absolutely no government. There is absolutely no prime minister, I hope, whether in government or in opposition, will want to encourage crime, would want crime to happen, Mr. Speaker. But, Mr. Speaker, in St. Lucia today, we have a problem with gun crime, particularly murders, gang-related murders, etc. But generally, there has been a reduction in crime in this country. Generally, Mr. Speaker. But, Mr. Speaker, when on some level of misinformation, we get a travel advisory, people rejoice. They're happy. They're happy. Because to them, that will make the government look bad, that will make the prime minister look bad, and they may win elections or get into government because of that, Mr. Speaker. But you heard from the Minister for Crime Prevention. Here is the plea bargaining, where you can cause crime to be reduced, controlled, or in some cases stopped, if you can have a systematic manner of causing either people who have committed crime or people who know of people who will commit crime, get them to come to the table and discuss, so you can either stop the crime or you can reduce the impact of that crime, Mr. Speaker. Well thought out legislation, all in the fight against crime. All in the fight against crime, Mr. Speaker. You have the backlog court, Mr. Speaker, and I know the name has still remained the same. And, Mr. Speaker, that was a court that in the 2022 budget, we said to the powers that be in the judicial services that we wanted a court for reduction, reduce the number of cases in the system, Mr. Speaker. And, Mr. Speaker, in 2016, there was a man who said that there were 10,000 cases in the court. Remember? As usual, Mr. Speaker, he misspoke, and the reporter asked him, "You mean 10,000? He said, "Yeah, 10,000. But he spent 5 years in government. It wasn't 10,000, but he spent 5 years in government, and he did nothing, absolutely nothing, to reduce these cases in the system. Nothing. Talk. We came into government in 2022, and immediately we put our money where our mouth was, and we decided to do something, Mr. Speaker. But we believe in processes. The process was slow. I want to thank the Attorney General for taking the pressure that I give him in terms of getting these things done, Mr. Speaker. But, Mr. Speaker, the Attorney General is a very stoic man. You never know if he's happy or if he's annoyed, Mr. Speaker. So sometimes sometimes when I put a little pressure on him, ask him for certain things, all he says to me, smiles, Mr. Speaker. But he delivered the court, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, the cynics would pretend as that court doesn't exist. That doesn't exist. That's not there at all. They go crime. And I'm happy that the minister can come today, because what redeems us all the time, Mr. Speaker, is our performance. That's what redeems us. So when they talk and they rant and they rave, Mr. Speaker, our performance, Mr. Speaker. So we can come today and we can report that there's been a reduction in the number of remand prisoners at the Bodily Correctional Institute because of the creation of the backlog court, Mr. Speaker. Action that we put into motion, Mr. Speaker. Action. We didn't just talk about it, Mr. Speaker, and that is our approach with crime reduction, Mr. Speaker. That's our approach to combat crime in this country. That's our approach, Mr. Speaker. So we have enforcement on one side. Enforcement as we speak. There are recruits being trained as we speak. Enforcement, giving the police vehicles. Enforcement, giving the police the most modern headquarters in CARICOM. And I was in Dominica on Sunday, and I was in Dominica. I went to a funeral. I was in Dominica on Sunday, Mr. Speaker, and I was literally boasting to my CPO that the station that my people worked in was almost better than most hotels. But, Mr. Speaker, they want to pretend that don't exist. They want to pretend that doesn't exist, Mr. Speaker. That don't exist. That doesn't exist, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I'm saying that because, I want to tell these men and women in that room that in spite of the noise, the government is working and the people of St. Lucia are benefiting from the work of the government, Mr. Speaker. So crime, let's stay on crime, Mr. Speaker. I got a call from the Minister of Equity. She was touring the George Charles School in cul-de-sac, Mr. Speaker. And here's what she said to me. She said that the rehabilitation facility that we want to build there for young people, the plan is a little too elaborate. Let us cut it down. Let us do it in stages so we can have a rehabilitation center for young men and women who are prone to commit crime, Mr. Speaker. And I can tell you, Mr. Speaker, that hopefully it's not in Soufrière. It is located in Castries South, Mr. Speaker. We will be having a rehabilitation center for young men in this country, Mr. Speaker. That is where this government is going. That's where this government is going, Mr. Speaker. Further, Mr. Speaker, the SSDF that they want to destroy, the SSDF has a program, Mr. Speaker, to help young men who are prone to crime or young men who have been in conflict with the law. We funded it to help them to get into meaningful employment and a meaningful way of life, Mr. Speaker. And we have the HOPE program, a program that they are trying to get people not to fund. The HOPE program that they are trying to get people not to fund. That's the wickedness of these people, Mr. Speaker. The HOPE program, and I want to thank the Taiwanese government for including in our grants this year $1 million for the HOPE program, where we will subsidize the salaries or the wages of people when we put them into employment, Mr. Speaker. That is what they want to stop. So what are you doing? What are you doing with that, Mr. Speaker? What does that do? First of all, you create employment. Secondly, you teach people a skill. And thirdly, you have income, you get distribute some income, Mr. Speaker, because of the HOPE program. But I, Mr. Speaker, I've been told that the $1 million that the Taiwanese gave us as a grant for the HOPE program, that will begin to, that will be transferred to the SSDF shortly, Mr. Speaker, and the HOPE program will continue in earnest with that injection, and we thank the Taiwanese, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, all these programs, reports are prepared, reports are written and given to the donors. All these programs, you'll find reports, Mr. Speaker, on how these programs were effected, Mr. Speaker. Especially these programs, I can tell you, from the years 2022 up to now, all these programs, including reports of the Basic Needs Trust Fund that assists in areas in schools, creating water supply, helping with footpaths, etc., from the Basic Needs Trust Fund, a program of the Caribbean Development Bank. Again, the Speaker, is hurtful. Basic Needs Trust Fund from the Caribbean Development Bank, helping underserved communities. These people want to stop that also, Mr. Speaker, by writing them lies and innuendos, Mr. Speaker. But the reports of the Basic Needs Trust Fund are done per program, and these reports have been prepared, and the Caribbean Development Bank has advised that another round of Basic Need Trust Fund programs will start shortly, Mr. Speaker. Another round of BNDF programs will start shortly, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, all these initiatives are in the realm of crime prevention as they deal with plea bargaining, backlog reduction, boys at risk, HOPE program, all of them. It's a holistic manner in dealing with the crime. Enforcement, Mr. Speaker, improving the number of police officers, giving more equipment to the police, the K9 unit, all of them, Mr. Speaker, a holistic approach to dealing with crime, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, I think the minister has described the bill in a very concise way, Mr. Speaker. And the minister is also involved in other programs. I'm expecting from him very shortly a report on the work that he has been doing in terms of people with disabilities, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, I was at the CARICOM meeting this week. I was very happy when the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago, she informed the meeting that she had a program for people with disabilities, for people to get prosthetic legs, etc., and she was inviting us to join her, Mr. Speaker. I thanked her sincerely, but I told her we also have a program like that in St. Lucia. So when I see the Prime Minister on Thursday, I will inform her that we're going to be sending some people to her, but we can almost do an exchange because we are setting up our center in St. Lucia, Mr. Speaker. That is CARICOM at work. Huh? Yes, Mr. Speaker, you just said to me, we are receiving 60 prosthetic legs in September, Mr. Speaker, and they are outfitting it as we speak, Mr. Speaker. And you also, I can tell you, Mr. Speaker, that we also are going to be getting some wheelchairs very shortly, Mr. Speaker. We have some wheelchairs for the people of St. Lucia, Mr. Speaker. So that is the work, but, Mr. Speaker, and something that we talk about wheelchair access. There's still need for wheelchair access in this country, Mr. Speaker. And, Mr. Speaker, in your new building, you will ensure that there's going to be wheelchair access, Mr. Speaker, in your new building when we commence construction of a new parliamentary building in January this year, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, we are going back. They can't stop us now. We're not going back, Mr. Speaker. We're not going back. Disabilities, crime, education, early childhood, Mr. Speaker, health, and again, Mr. Speaker, I understand there have been certain medical people who don't seem to be happy with how the government is progressing, Mr. Speaker. In fact, very unfair actually. But Mr. Speaker, do you know, as we speak, we are extending the Grosley Polyclinic as we speak, Mr. Speaker, and the Grosley Polyclinic will be ready very shortly. A modern addition, in fact, the Martin, and we take the opportunity to rename it the Dr. Martin Didier Polyclinic, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, by next month, tenders are going to be out for the construction of an emergency center to complement what's at the OKU, Mr. Speaker, at the Dr. Winston C.V. Paris Medical Complex, Mr. Speaker. Work is going to start there, Mr. Speaker, if not in September, surely in October, Mr. Speaker. The old Victoria Hospital will be converted into another emergency center for emergency treatment, Mr. Speaker. All that is happening, Mr. Speaker, in health. So the people who believe that they can say to people that there's nothing happening in health, Mr. Speaker, tell them that as we speak, dialysis is happening at the St. Jude Hospital, Mr. Speaker, as we speak, and work on this. Because, Mr. Speaker, these people are so hateful of progress and so hateful of St. Lucia. You know, they're wishing that the hospital burn again. Mr. Speaker, this is sad. And even, Mr. Speaker, you know, this is a very sad situation for a government that tried to build a hospital and failed. Another government is building a hospital, Mr. Speaker. You are hoping and praying that a fire catches there. That's it. Mr. Speaker, I mean, this is, and I think the conscience of this society should castigate these people, Mr. Speaker. Because when a fire happens at St. Jude again, who will suffer? The people that you want to get medical care. But just because you hope that if that happens, the government will fall. If it happens, the government will win the election, you are hoping and praying. I don't know if you're praying, but you're hoping that there's a fire at St. Jude, Mr. Speaker. The same, Mr. Speaker, they rejoice when there's a crime, when there's an unfortunate crime. Not thinking about the victims, not thinking about the cost of health services because of that accident. They are rejoicing. It's a good thing, Mr. Speaker, because they believe that the government, the Labour Party, will pay for it in the polls, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, I really want to congratulate the minister and give my full support to the plea bargaining bill, Mr. Speaker, and tell him we'll be watching him to see how this will manifest itself in reality, Mr. Speaker. I'm happy that the work at Bordelais is progressing, in that we are trying to give these young men a new lease of life, Mr. Speaker. And I happen to be at Bordelais as a visitor last month, Mr. Speaker, and they presented me with a book of poems, Mr. Speaker, where the guys were putting their thoughts in poetry. A book launch, Mr. Speaker, and that book was dedicated to a gentleman called Vern Gard, who is now the Commissioner of Police, Mr. Speaker. that book was dedicated to him. And again, it was very pleasing to see how these men tried to change their lives whilst they were behind bars, Mr. Speaker. And the member of Derry North and myself, in a life before, we visited Bodele again, not as inmates, but as visitors. We had dinner and lunch with the inmates and the officers at Bodele, Mr. Speaker. All again in giving them some hope. And we are happy that with the reduction in numbers there, because of these initiatives, there will be more hope and there will be more success for these people, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, I support this bill wholeheartedly, and I thank the Minister and all the people in the Ministry of Home Affairs and the correctional areas in this country who are working hard. Most of them work hard, most of them work honestly, most of them are trying to improve the quality of life of the people of St. Lucia. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Minister for Home Affairs.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, let me thank the Prime Minister for his support. And whilst the Prime Minister was speaking, Mr. Speaker, I was just going through my email again to look at what the backlog court has been doing. And I'm very happy with the fact that a lot of the matters that the backlog court have been dealing with are indictable matters which traditionally, Mr. Speaker, would have gone 10, 15 years, sometimes 20 years, sometimes more than 2 decades within the system. So these matters have been disposed of. Individuals, where matters have been withdrawn, where matters had to be withdrawn, it was withdrawn. Where that sentences had to be imposed, the sentence was imposed. So individuals now can go, and it speaks to the foresight of this Honorable Prime Minister to say, and he would have mentioned that the issue was not one that we inherited when we came in to office in 2021, Mr. Speaker. It's a one that existed way before our tenure, our political tenure in 2021. But what he did was to put the mechanism in place so that we can deal with these matters. And I saw at least 48 indictable matters. And Mr. Speaker, 48 may sound like a small number to you, but in terms of when you think of the statistics and what it means, and for the individuals involved in the judiciary, they'll tell you 48 indictable matters being disposed of is a huge, huge, huge success for anyone and any judicial system, and even for us as a government. So I want to thank the Prime Minister and those individuals, and the Attorney General. Again, Prime Minister says when he smiles, we don't know if it's a smile of approval or one of disapproval, but always thank him for his hard work. Mr. Speaker, again, Mr. Speaker, just to remind us of what the bill does. The bill is a carefully crafted piece of legislation that balances efficiency with fairness, accountability, compassion, and public interest with individual rights. It also modernizes the criminal justice framework. It strengthens the role of the victims. And again, Mr. Speaker, you would have heard me mention in section, I think, 10, 13, and 16, the provisions made there for victims. Very happy that the victims were given serious consideration in the development of this bill, and the preparation of this bill. And it provides the justice system with an additional tool. I think that's the most important part, Mr. Speaker. It provides the justice system with an additional tool to deliver timely and effective justice to the people of St. Lucia. So we know that this will not solve everything, but it gives us yet another option, Mr. Speaker. So now you're not just going down a cul-de-sac. You have the opportunity. So someone who's arrested now have the opportunity to be able to choose that option, and we can expedite through the system. We can expedite the process for them through the system. So again, Mr. Speaker, I thank Prime Minister for his unwavering support and for his stellar leadership and foresight, and for us to be able to be here, the Attorney General and their team. I thank them, and I just want to say thanks to everyone who supported the bill, and I look forward to it actually materializing, where we have that structured framework, that legal body where individuals can now access a plea bargain. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable members, the question is that the plea bargaining bill be read a second time. I now put the question as many as of that opinion, say aye. As many as of a contrary opinion, say no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it.
An act to establish for plea bargaining and for related matters.
Clause 2.
Interpretation.
Clause 2 stands part of the bill. Clause 3.
Application.
Clause 3 stands part of the bill. Part 1, clauses 4 to 24.
Plea bargaining and post-sentence plea bargaining.
Part 1, clause 4 to 24 stands part of the bill. Part 2, clauses 25 to 28.
Appeals.
Part 2, clauses 25 to 28 stands part of the bill. Part 3, clauses 29 to 32.
Miscellaneous.
Part 3, clauses 29 to 32 stands part of the bill. Clause 1.
Short title and commencement.
Clause 1 stands part of the bill. Honourable members, the question is that the committee rises and the bill be reported. I now put the question. As many as of that opinion say aye. As many as of a contrary opinion say no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it. Honourable members, I beg to report that the plea bargaining bill went through committee stage without amendments. Minister for Home Affairs.
Mr. Speaker, I move that the report of the committee be adopted and that the bill be read a third time and passed.
He clearly was a good deputy speaker. Honourable members, the question is that the report of the committee be adopted and that the plea bargaining bill be read a third time and passed. I now put the question. As many as of that opinion say aye. As many as of a contrary opinion say no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it.
Be it enacted by the King's Most Excellent Majesty, by and with the advice and consent of the House of Assembly and the Senate of St. Lucia, and by the authority of the same as follows. This act may be cited as the Plea Bargaining Act 2026. This act comes into force on a date to be fixed by the Minister by order published in the Gazette.
Acting Leader of Government Business and Member for Dennery North.
Mr. Speaker, I move that the House stand adjourned. Senate aye.
Honourable members, the question is that this House do stand adjourned sine die. I now put the question. As many as of that opinion say aye. As many as of a contrary opinion say no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it. Sitting adjourned.
All rise.
They'll knock to let us know when to go. He'll knock to let us know when to go. Eh bien, nous venons au bout de cette session qui consiste aujourd'hui. Ce n'est pas une session qui était tellement longue quand même. On va tenir une motion qui était discutée. Ça, c'est une motion pour tirer ça. Il y aura des VAT sur certaines marchandises. Ça, c'est pour. Comment on dit ça? Des marchandises. Qui a fait de l'eau avec ça il y a des photovoltaïques, ça veut dire pour service soleil, énergie soleil avec bagaille comme ça pour tout faire mon jeune ces bagailles ça là sans taxe, ça c'est VAT à supplément avec une tenue pour passer un cahier Parlement aujourd'hui qui a été présenté par le Premier ministre. Il y a des notés, après le Premier ministre a présenté, la tenue membre Parlement pour Babono qui parlait à ce, c'est lui qui était premier pour parler. Après c'était membre Parlement pour choisir, parlait à ce aussi. Nous étions aussi membre Parlement pour Laboui avec membre Parlement pour Nord Denry, ils ont tout parlé à ce motion, là, puisque quand je dis c'est une motion qui était bien important. Et aussi, nous avons en l'autre discussion aujourd'hui à ce ça c'est income tax. Le Premier ministre a présenté ça là aussi. Personne n'a pas parlé, mais c'était un qui était bien important. Et dernièrement, nous étions en l'autre motion, ça c'est un bill qui était présenté par, pour la première fois, il présentait un bill par Koy. Ça c'est membre parlement pour Nord Nico, on a Jeremiah Norbert. Il était présenté le bill, ça nous a créé plus bargaining. Ça c'est pour aider les gens qui fait aider mes children.
Ça c'est si on trouve quoi dans une situation
en difficulté.
Côté il y a exécuté en l'audience.
Right, exactement.
Pour crime yo accusé pour mon ça la arrivé en agrément et puis pays ça donc que state là.
Right.
Ça dit OK, est-ce que au cas ça bon moi plus payer passer temps si c'est 10 l'année moi pas pour moi accepter 7 l'année que moi ba information que un do pour solver crime là plus profondé, plus fond, et puis pour empêcher l'autre bail.
C'est ça, oui. Merci.
Plus bargaining. Nous avons chai en dedans la loi Amérique, mais nous pas tenir la loi pour supporter ça.
Et raison ça important, c'est puisque le Premier ministre dit, la tenir chaque cas qui était en gouvernement, chaque cas l'audience, ça a créé un backlog. Avec pour ça, il était ni pour implémenter ça. Et depuis que le gouvernement ça l'a venu, il a commencé, il a ouvert une audience spéciale pour dealer avec les problèmes ça là. Et ça a travaillé assez bien. Shelton?
Yes, Michael, very good summation that you've done there of the plea bargain legislation which is presented there. Today, we know a lot of the crime that is committed nowadays, the violent crime, the gun crime. It is done within, we can say, the bubble, the construct of gang. And if you are to bust through those gangs, for anybody who is a member of a gang, for example, who's convicted, who is sentenced, they will not go and squeal, as we say, on members of the gang unless there's something in it for them. And so the plea bargain, for example, somebody who's facing a very long sentence, 20 years, we enter into a plea bargain for lesser time. So I think that's a very good solution. The day has gone very smoothly. Things went very compactly. I mean, we had about more than 50 statutory instruments. But as you know, statutory instruments, they are laid, they give effect to legislation that is already in place. Maybe with a little bit of
that requires a little tabling in Parliament, yes.
To apply to a particular situation. So that didn't really take too much time. The main presenters of them were the Prime Minister, and also we saw Honorable John Paul Estefan presenting on behalf of Honorable Ernest Eber, who was not at today's sitting because he's, I think, out of state on official business. There was also the Salaries Review Commission report, which was presented by Prime Minister Philip J. And that is about a commission which was established by law to review the salaries of public officers, public servants, and also politicians, you know, members of the cabinet, members of parliament, and so on, to look at this. And so what we saw was the laying of that report in the parliament. It was something which went through, but there was the explanation too, which I think is very important, that even people who were very retired already, that it will apply to them retroactively, so that there will be adjustments in the amount that they are paid for their pension, for their retirement benefits, in line with the recommendations that the salary review commission has made. And it was mentioned that I think for a certain period of time, while the commission's work and recommendations cover, and not only that also, but I think there was a mention of a 23% adjustment in terms of, so an actual figure was given as to how those persons can look to see. And let us not forget, this is the government which has already done certain things in terms of adjusting, the pension benefits of people and retired persons and a whole lot of things. So this is likely to be very, very welcome news. I think the others, there were not many bills. But I think we've already spoken about the criminal code amendment bill. It was just laid
in Parliament for the first reading.
The income tax amendment, I think you have covered very well, and also the motion, for Parliament by affirmative resolution approving the draft value added tax and all the areas that it covers, and they mostly have to do with alternative or renewable energy, because we will have to give this utmost seriousness, especially the challenges that we are facing now with fuel prices, with energy sources, and a whole lot of things. So,
and one point on that that the Prime Minister mentioned was that with the situation in the world today, that we need to begin to see about ourselves, and that is one of the mechanisms that the government is proposing. Very good.
Greater self-reliance. Well, thank you so very much, everyone, for tuning in and being served by the Government Information Service and the National Television Network, as well as on RSL 97.
Yes, St. Lucia FM.
St. Lucia FM.
Yes.
And so, we are happy that you have been part of the broadcast. We understand a little earlier that you drew it to our attention that there was a little problem with our live stream via Facebook and YouTube. The technicians were aware of it. We don't know how far it went in turn, but we understand it was an internet service problem that was affecting. It was not really any fault in terms of the delivery of the service by our technical services department. And perhaps this is the groundwork for a conversation that maybe we will see more of in the days to come about the quality of internet service. Of course, we've had discussions about water, we're having discussions about electricity. Maybe there will be a deeper conversation about internet service, because so many things depend on it, and it carries so many other things. So, until next time, from the House of Parliament, this sitting of the St. Lucia House of Assembly that we've just had, we know that what is here, almost all of it will definitely make its way through the Senate in the bicameral nature of our Parliament, where it will also be presented, and what needs to be debated and contributed will be here. Again, the Deputy Prime Minister was not here today. We also did not see Honorable Danny Butcher. He was not present here as well. And the Leader of the Opposition, Honorable Alan Chastney. But that was all said before we started, that they had in fact given excuses and had reasons why they could not be present.
And of course, the Member of Parliament for Central Castries is on vacation.
So, on behalf of Michael Gasper and all of us here from the Government Information Service, NTN, this is Shelton Daniel, for now, signing off.